All right, I think we're live. So welcome everyone to another Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motor YouTube channel. Hope you're all having a great weekend here. Thanks so much for stopping by. So like all the other usual live streams, we're going to go for about 2 hours or so. I'll give priority answering to anyone who does a super chat or a super thanks. So as anyone there with the green usernames, they are members that always get priority answering. If you'd also like that priority answering, there's always a join buttons here on the video page and elsewhere, and including a link in the description. And I see YouTube still trying out this community thing. So I think because Cars is the first commenter here, he gets the crown for now. And so Cars, thanks so much for stopping by. And also Brian, Harsha, Kevin, Anthony, Lanswath, and Danny, Fook, and Krieger, Still Buster, and the okayest bassist, Mr. 705, Decepticon, Raphael, Linda, thanks so much for stopping by, everyone. And let me see here. So Cara says, hi, Matt and everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Since we last chatted, I became a homeowner and moved 20 miles closer to California. Homeownership certainly has lots of requirements, but life is good. I just learned the surprising facts about 2005 Ford Maverick, or 2025 Ford Maverick EcoBoost engines, new block head, cams, valve train, crank rods, piston aluminum valve cover, 1.995 cc versus the 1.999. Port and direct injection. Basically had no idea until reading a comment on my channel that inspired me to dig deeper. Eventually I found a detailed YouTube video about it from TD TV Garage. Surprised Ford didn't say more sooner. Interesting. I guess, yeah, I knew that they had to make some changes due to the fact that they had to do some new emission stuff for 2025. And but I mean, it did lose horsepower, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, I wasn't aware. I don't think I knew about any of that stuff either. I know there have been some other EcoBoost changes along the way, but yeah, either I've forgotten about that whenever it was announced a long time ago, or maybe that's just something that I just wasn't aware of either. So interesting. I'll have to do more digging. And it is strange that like Ford and others don't detail that kind of stuff, especially when they go to great lengths. It's just kind of an odd choice for sure. But congrats on being a homeowner now, and that's very exciting. And yeah, definitely a lot of requirements. I'm well aware of that too. It's little things whenever they get broken, you got to fix them yourself, or have plenty of money to hire people. You can't just call a landlord or something. But yeah, home ownership's great. Equity is very nice to have, and building that is great. So happy to have you join the club here. Let me see, got a bunch of other stuff coming in here. So Lanswath, thank you so much, gifting 5 memberships. I really appreciate that. Happy to see a bunch of people able to grab those there, including some familiar faces as well. And Lanswath also says, how's your week been, Matt? Well, first, thanks for being a member for 11 months now. And it's been a good week. Been some crazy stuff. My heart goes out to everyone in California with all the craziness went down there this weekend. I haven't really been on social media much to see what the update is here today, but hope everyone's doing okay with that. But yeah, otherwise, this week was an interesting one, politically, and then is also a fun one for me. I was in Aspen. I guess I didn't really post on social media about it. I'm sometimes bad about doing that in the moment. We were driving a bunch, but anyway, I was on the Audi A5, S5, Q5, SQ5 launch event, and you'll be seeing the Qs here on Wednesday, I believe, is when the embargo drops on that. The A and the S will be the following week. So can't talk about how they drive, but we were on some incredible roads. We drove over the Continental Divide and went all through the Rockies and stuff. It was about 7 hours of driving each day. So about 3.5 hours in each, variant there. And then we did also split it up between drivers because I had a co-driver as well. So lots and lots of driving, but incredible. It's actually my first time, I believe, in Aspen as well, and really a cool place too. Really, a fun event as far as the way they had it all set up there. And Yeah, I hope you guys this week has been well too, especially Lancelot. I hope yours has been well too. And Kraken, thanks so much for being a member for 38 months now. I really appreciate that. And he says 38 months. Yeah, hey, I missed your answer from last week. YouTube was being dumb. Could I submit an updated pick of my car for member car of the week? Absolutely. Yeah, always. Yeah, feel free to send a pick over, and I can feature that here tomorrow. So yeah, thanks for sending it in, and thanks for being a member for 38 months once again. And Confirmation, thanks for rejoining. Happy to have you here, and looking forward to chatting. And Jordan, thanks for being a member for 20 months now. He says, hey, Matt, your thoughts on Nissan? Will the new Leaf be affordable? And is Nissan a sinking ship, new vehicle for the Ford lineup soon? So as far as Nissan, we haven't heard too many updates in the past few weeks that I've seen, really. So we'll just have to see how things go for them. I think they also are kind of not sure how things will shake out for them, because they actually were saying they're somewhat excited about tariffs for them because they are pretty well positioned compared to some of their competitors. And that makes them excited because that gives them an edge. So, they're probably one of very few people that maybe actually don't mind if the tariffs stick around, because it's going to really help them a lot. If it does, that's probably the only company I can say that about that they'll help. So that's, I think, but again, no one knows what the policy is going to be like tomorrow or the next day. So, I think right now it's completely up in the air. And as far as the Leaf being affordable, the Leaf always has been affordable in the past, and so we'll just have to wait and see. I believe the reveal was supposed to come sometime here in June. I don't remember exactly when the day was for that, but it should be coming soon. But as far as, will it be affordable? I would assume probably, it's going to be smaller than Aria, so therefore it should be cheaper than Aria, which already puts it in some fairly affordable territory, depending on your definition of that word. But I think it should be. And as far as Nissan being a sinking ship, yeah, it's just gonna come down to those tariffs, and also just how well everything else sells that they already have on dealer lots. I know Kicks was an early winner. I haven't looked at sales numbers recently to see if it's continued to sell well or not. But, having low price stuff is obviously a very good play right now, and will continue to be a good play, especially as this year continues. So, I think that they hopefully are in the process of turning it around, and, hopefully seeing sunny skies ahead for them. But, even if the tariff situation is beneficial for them, that only goes so far, because great, you have cars you can build here in America that other companies can't bring in. But is anyone going to have any money to buy those cars? I think that's, so even if, things go their way, they're still going to face all the same headwinds that everyone else is going to be facing with, a rough economy here in the second half, most likely. So we'll have to wait and see. As far as new vehicle for the Ford lineup soon, I don't know. I don't think there's anything super close on the horizon that I can think of. I think there was that Skunk Works affordable vehicle that they're working on in California that I think wasn't supposed to come till either next year or the year after. And I think it's electric, so they're probably slowing that down. There's rumors of, I think, plug-in hybrid trucks and stuff in 2028. But I don't think there's anything really new on the horizon for Ford. I could be wrong, but I'm not sure if there's really anything, honestly. But yeah, great questions, and thanks so much for stopping by, Jordan, being a member for 20 months now. Let me see, getting back to the other member questions here. So see, Harsha and Brian say hi, and Kevin and Anthony says, hey, everyone, not too many spots this weekend. Lots of rain, but I did see a newer 911 GT3 RS driving through a ridiculous storm. Wow, that's pretty crazy. Yeah, we had a lot of crazy storms here this week as well. A little bit of flooding in the area. Thankfully, nothing bad here at our house, but lots of heavy rains for sure. It's crazy. Definitely one of the rainiest years so far I can remember. One of the cooler ones, too. It's interesting. Lance Walt didn't see any cool cars this week either. I actually just on the way home here, we were out today. I just saw a Clown Shoe Z3 again, a different one. So that was kind of surprising. And I also saw my favorite, one of my favorite bumper stickers that says, "No baby on board, feel free to rear end me," which I saw there was one that was a variation of that, I think last year, and I just cracked up laughing when I saw that. So definitely, I think my favorite bumper sticker ever. But let me see. So Harsh also says, do you think Toyota should make a GR Sport Corolla as an answer to the Civic Si as the GR Corolla competes with the Type R? Yeah, I think that would make a lot of sense, and I'd love to see them do that. I think the argument I made whenever I reviewed Prius Prime was that Prius Prime is kind of, I mean, it does Civic Si horsepower. So, and even regular Civic or even regular Prius is only, like 194, 196 with all-wheel drive. You're 6 horsepower away, 7 horsepower away from a Civic Si. So I really view Prius as kind of taking that role now in a way. Obviously, you need tires, you need that kind of stuff. So I mean, I think, next gen Corolla will probably get the same hybrid system and drop the, slow one, because I think it's the last thing in the lineup that has that slower hybrid powertrain. So my guess is we'll get the, 190-ish horsepower for Corolla when its new generation comes. I'm guessing that'll be next year. I'm not sure. But, when that arrives, especially seeing GR Sport for RAV4, I think that would be a prime time. I think that's a very good call to, bring in GR Sport for Corolla as well. And have something, with better tires, a little bit of a sportier suspension like Civic Si, basically. It'd be awesome if they brought back the manual too, but even just offering it with an automatic as an alternative to those who don't want to drive a manual Si, I think could work too. But yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. It's honestly surprising Toyota hasn't done it yet. And yeah, I'm not sure really why, honestly, because they could have even thrown in the RAV4 motor, the naturally aspirated one that they are now getting rid of. But that one that's did like 200 and I think 200 and something, 203 horsepower or something like that. But yeah, I don't know. But I think that makes a lot of sense for sure. And let me see. So Danny says, hello. So correction about my dad's first car. His 88 Skylark had the 3-liter V6, not the Iron Duke. Only rare spot this week was an 8th gen Civic Hybrid. Nice. And yeah, much better experience, I'm sure, with the V6 for the Iron Duke. And Danny said, also, the family Traverse rolled over 41,000 miles this week. It's a 2019, so it's low mileage. Also this week, the Bolt hit 75,000 miles. Awesome. And Fuchs said, hi, everyone. I saw a Charger EV earlier this week. I'm surprised how big it is, like wider than a Tahoe, it seems. Also saw an Ocean and Aventador today. Yeah, a Charger, especially, wait till you see the 4-door version. I mean, it is long. I think it's longer than an S-Class. Like, it is a big, big car. I actually am, like, nervous about having to park one for the first time in a, like, normal parking spot, because like Charger EV seems so long for the 4-door version, like almost borderline like overboard. And like it reminds me of like the Dodge Imperials and Diplomats and stuff from like the 70s were like so big and long. Like that's kind of the vibe I get as far as the length with the new Charger. So yeah, I'm still waiting to get a Charger EV press car. I've been wanting to spend more time with one, and yeah, I just haven't had any luck with getting it in the fleet yet here. And I see G. Krieger says they sound ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you're saying that in a good way or a bad way, but I think it's a cool sound. And I'm just, again, happy that they're offering sounds. It's optional. You don't have to have it. But I think it's fun to make it a little more exciting. And Stillbuster says, hey, guys, car spot of the week was a black 59 Cadillac Coupe de Ville. Such a sexy beast. Very nice. Yeah. So much class in a car like that. I love them. Danny said, I forgot about my other rare spot, a 1985 Ford Ecoline van. It was rusting out on every single panel, unfortunately. It was also had a baby blue paint. Wow. Yeah, that's yeah, you don't see many of those around anymore. That's impressive. And I actually saw an Aerostar the other day, and I was like, wow, I haven't seen one of those in forever either. So that was interesting. And Fuchs says, about the Charger, he knows people who have literal boats that are smaller than the Charger. Yeah, that checks out. And the OKS Basis said, happy Sunday, all. Interesting spots this week includes a Mitsubishi Evo 3, nice, Shelby Daytona, and a Pontiac Montana. Nice, very, very cool spots. And thanks for stopping by, MS75 Decepticon says, Matt Maran back in the house. Thanks for stopping by. Raphael says, hello, all this week's sighting is a Charger EV. Okay, I guess they're really starting to pop up more. That's cool. Really attractive car, even if it's too expensive and the sound is terrible. Okay, so yeah, Raphael's on the thumbs down camp there for the sound. I hope that's something they also tweak and improve. I think they should offer multiple sounds too, and let people pick whatever sound they want and do something, because I mean, it has pipes, but the pipes are still putting out a sound that Dodge has created. So I I mean, I've talked to so many people about this. I'm like, why do we not have the full catalog of every awesome vehicle that every one of these car companies has done? Anyone who's doing electric stuff with sounds, like, do all your heritage sounds. I know it's not authentic, but I think it would sound better. If the Charger EV sounded like it just had a recording of a 68 Charger, that would be amazing. Or actually had a recording of a Hellcat. I know everyone's like, well, we want to be new and different, not just copy the old. But I think especially in these gateway years of you trying to win people over, that futuristic UFO mixed with a Charger kind of sound probably, is a bridge too far for a lot of people. But I think if you're like, okay, yeah, it looks cool, the performance is there, and if you don't mind charging and dealing with electric stuff, then why not just have familiar sounds? Yes, it's unoriginal, but if you can again have the whole catalog to pick from, it's great. And I think Honda sounds like they're going to be one of the first to play with this, because there was the one prototype they had where you could pick any sound. NSX Type R, you could have Honda Jet if you wanted to sound like a jet. It was always on the inside, I think, for that prototype. But again, you got speakers on the outside. There's nothing stopping you from having your car actually sound like a Honda Jet on the outside if you wanted. And I mean, again, if there's no limits with that stuff, then why not have fun with it and let people be as crazy as they want to be? So I think that would be the way forward. I mean, there's so many companies, especially the companies that have these rich histories. Like, it's a no-brainer. Like, come on. I mean, Porsche, any of the American brands. I mean, I could go on all day, all the amazing sounds we could dig up. Even my buddy Jared at Carbuzz, he was like, why does the RZ, it's going to have these new sounds and the shifts and stuff for the Lexus RZ crossover. He's like, why does it not sound like an LFA? That's the best sounding thing you guys ever made. Like, why do something different? Like, literally just upload a recording of LFA and be done. And like, seriously, I totally agree. It's like, I don't see why not. Even again as an option. And again, all these companies are looking for new ways to have subscriptions and all this stuff. Like, this is prime DLC that I know people would pay for. Maybe not a lot of people, but it's free money. I'm sure they have some simulated recording of an LFA somewhere from when they recorded it for Forza or Gran Turismo or something. Literally upload that, call it good, and charge people $5 a sound or $3 a sound or $1 a sound. I don't even know, whatever. But like, I think it's just free money that's just sitting there, and they can just offer it. It costs them nothing. It doesn't hurt anything. It doesn't need any regulations or anything. It's just like no holds, just go for it, So anyway, let me see. Yeah, Linda, thanks for stopping by. And Linda, I also saw your comments earlier. You were watching some of the Mustang videos from the past there. The old 60, I think it was a 66 or 67 Mustang I did, and then the Bullet review and stuff. So thanks for going back and watching those, Linda, as well. Hope you enjoyed them. And Raphael, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, movies synthesize sounds. Why do electric cars struggle with fake engine sounds? Yeah, it is strange how people are trying to just find ways to kind of reinvent the wheel in a way. Again, I do understand, like, people want to have something that's a sound signature and something that's going to be the next generation into the future and sound futuristic and all this. But I think, again, it's just, I really think the gateway of having something familiar makes more sense, especially these days now as we see, slowing demand in some cases for EVs. Again, still growing market share, so it is still growing, but it's not as red hot as it used to be. So I think there could be some extra things you could add there to, incentivize it a little bit for people. But anyway, yeah, I don't know. Maybe, I mean, BMW, they hired Hans Zimmer to do the sounds for the BMW M stuff. And I've never driven one of those electric M's to like try it out or see if it's, decent or nothing or anything. But like, I was really excited about that because I'm like, all right, a movie guy, like my favorite composer, basically, epic sound scores, in all these movies and shows and stuff. Like, that would be an amazing car sound, I'm sure. And I think I heard some clips online, but I've never actually like really heard a whole lot from that as far as how it sounded, in the car and stuff. Anyone, if you've ever driven any electric BMWs that have had those Hans Zimmer sounds, let me know how they are. But yeah, other than that, I don't know. Everyone seems to be struggling, but they should all just hire better people to do that stuff if they can't crack it themselves. Thank you again for the super chat, Raphael. And let me see. Stefan says, Super X fan OG, keep up the good work. Thanks for watching all these years. I really appreciate it. And V Mitchell said his spot of the week, a pal bought a 66 Rambler 770 cross country wagon project. Very cool. I couldn't even tell you how that looked as far as like picturing that car in my mind. But that's awesome. And cool to see Ramblers. I know they were like everywhere when they were actually new, and then they've just disappeared very quickly. But happy to hear, Rambler is sticking around. And speaking of sticking around, I see Scott says Hemi is back. Yeah, that was the big news here this week. And I have to be careful what I say because there's still some stuff that's under embargo, and I don't remember when all the embargoes lifted. But yes, I know that they did drop that the Hemi is back, and that's very exciting. And yeah, I mean, it's gonna be kind of funny. I mean, I'm glad that Ram knows their market and they know their buyer. But it is kind of funny that like it's going to be slower and worse performing in every single way, but it's literally like, people are just gonna buy it for the sound, and it's $1,200 extra. I mean, so it's just kind of surprising that they're going back. I mean, I understand people wanted it. I think I was expecting, there to be an enhancement and it wasn't going to be just the same 5.7. We knew that they were, ramping that back up, but I, wasn't sure if they were going to pair it with some electrification or do something else. But I guess, they just wanted to get it back as quickly as possible. And the easiest way to do that was like literally port it over exactly the same, just adapt it to the new electrical system in the new 1500 and do nothing else. And that's why, like they said, it still has the e-torque system because they needed to, not change anything for the engine. Otherwise they'd have to recertify the engine, but I guess the engine is already certified the way it is. So they are able to just pop it back in and still keep going with that. So yeah, it is surprising though, but it's also I mean, Tim Kaniskis like said in the one video, like we screwed up, and like owning that publicly, in a video you're putting out deliberately to the world, not like a interviewer question or something, but like actually coming out on your own and saying we screwed up. I think it's commendable. I actually think they're too hard on themselves. I don't think they screwed up. I think that they made the right decision for the time period they were in. And it's one of those things that, again, trying to react to all these changes is very hard to do. And so you have to look long-term, and long-term, the 6-cylinder is still going to be the way forward. I wouldn't expect this Hemi to stick around beyond 2029, but it's a nice cash grab for them. They could use a win right now. And, I mean, this doesn't mean they're going backwards on everything, though. I mean, there was interviewers that were asking at the media roundtable thing that I was at, or that there was a Q&A after the presentation. And they, he's like, Tim's like, we're still going for the electric truck. We're still doing the plug-in hybrid, or, the range extender thing. He's like, that's all still happening. We're still going to beat everyone in the market with the range extender. And we're still going full blown into the electrification thing. Like, that's not changing. We know that's the future. Everyone still agrees that's the future, regardless of however much everyone hates it. Like, all the car companies still agree, like, that is the direction we're heading. So he's like, that hasn't changed. It's just that we're adding this in too. And again, he didn't say cash grab, but like clearly, while there's no rules or regulations anymore, like, go ham, I guess, is, the thinking there. I mean, I could get a little more into the weeds with that, but I won't. So, but again, they can use the win right now. And even if it's more pollution, I'm sure most enthusiasts are very happy about that. So, but let me see here. Marco says, hey, Matt, hope you and your family are doing great. I finally made a decision on my next car, and I know you're going to love it. Nice. I can't wait to see what you get, and definitely let us know once it arrives. And congrats on the new car inbound. That's always exciting. And yeah, I hope you enjoy it, whatever it ends up being. And Fuchs says, to be honest, I don't hate how it looks if only it was 10% smaller, I guess, as far as the Charger. Yeah, it is big. I mean, I think I think Dodge was smart with the way they designed the new Challenger or the new Charger because like they wanted to, I think, capitalize on what made the Challenger so loved is that it was the roomiest, it was the most practical, and it had all the awesome power. And it's retained that obviously just with the electric thing, but I think that's the key improvement. And this is the big downfall of Camaro as well, in my opinion, and why I think Charger eventually has the potential to outsell Mustang is that it's going to have a way bigger back seat, a huge hatch you actually can use way more than the Mustang's regular old little trunk, and it's just better in all the ways as far as packaging and all that stuff goes. So I think it is big, but it's a muscle car, and I think they knew, look at how big a 68 Charger is. I mean, I think this is probably bigger, but the same kind of, they're very blocky and very large, and especially for their day, they were huge. So I mean, I think the size is okay, and we will see. Time will tell once they get the gas ones out, and once the shock factor has vanished and people just get used to it. I think you're going to see that it will long term be a really good body style and sell really well for them. And same thing, four door, same great thing. With the Sportback, we're seeing Audi doing that, consolidating A4 and A5 into just this new A5, Sportback kind of thing. There's talks of others doing that down the road as well. I think it makes a lot of sense to get people out of SUVs or stop people from going into SUVs to say, hey, do you actually need that Durango? Like, you got this giant hatch here. You can still bring home your big screen TV in this thing, and really kind of make people question, do I actually need to have an SUV? So I'm hoping Charger kind of helps cars in general, and a lot of others follow that, including Mustang. I think Mustang doing, a Fox body kind of hatch thing. I mean, they have it in the history. Like, why not do it? I think Ford just got lazy with the S650, but I think hopefully for next gen, if there is a next gen, they really, go back to the hatch thing. I think it makes a lot of sense. Two Track Jack, thanks for stopping by. And Kraken says, absolutely stoked for the Elantra N week. I got Kraken to do some really crazy oversteer this week. Probably one of the most sideways I've ever been. Been caught off guard, but I was giggling like a baby. Nice. That's awesome. Glad you had fun, and I'm glad you're enjoying your car so much. It's so great to hear. And I'm sure, next time I'm at a Hyundai event, I'll have to pass that along to the Hyundai engineers as well. That, it's a shame we never got a new Kona N. I'm not sure why, because all the pieces are there. And I mean, maybe it'll happen someday. I don't know, but it's a shame we don't have it anymore. It was too short of a run and such a fun idea. And Confirmation says, Matt, did you notice Subaru teasing a new performance model? I'm not going to hold my breath. Yeah, I did see that. It looked like it is current gen WRX, which I think was why a lot of people were saying, oh, maybe it is going to be an STI. But like you said, yeah, I'm not holding my breath for anything. And if there is something coming, I mean, we saw at Tokyo Auto Salon last year, the S210, it's CVT only. And I mean, they could do something different for America, but like, it just showed that what they consider acceptable is not what most enthusiasts would consider acceptable, at least here in America. So we'll just have to see what happens. But yeah, I mean, Subaru's broken all of our hearts so many times that I'm not going to get my hopes up. And, and the thing is, I mean, like I talked about in prior weeks here, WRXs are now 39 grand to start because of tariffs. 39,000 for the base, but I didn't even look at how much TS and stuff is. It's probably 55 grand or something. But like, so best case scenario, we get a new STI. It's 350 horsepower, has an amazing all-wheel drive system. Everything is a 10 out of 10, like beautiful sound, like, list every wish list thing you have for an STI. Even if it came with all that stuff, it's going to be 60 grand and no one's going to buy it. I mean, so it's just, yeah, I think it's one of those things for Subaru where they're damned if they do, they're damned if they don't. And I mean, they know they'll never make everybody happy. They've come to terms with that with their styling and stuff. But I think, it's just not something I'm very excited about, honestly. If this were me 10 years ago, it would be, but now I'm far too jaded with Subaru to get excited about any teaser they put out. So yeah. We'll see though. And Chad says, "What are your thoughts on the Scout brand?" I'm really excited for Scout. I think they were very smart to do the range extender thing. Even last year, that debuted before the election or any of that stuff. They just kind of saw the writing on the wall that, like, hey, look, there's this very early little hesitancy with EVs and trucks, and we want to have this off-roading capability and stuff. So the range extender, I think that thing would have been not a flop, but it would have been a lot less successful as far as pre-orders and hype if there was no range extender. I think, because I was at the reveal and I filmed them. I did a whole thing. So if you want to hear my thoughts on what it's like actually inside the trucks and all that stuff, I did a hands-on video with the Scouts the day they were revealed. So definitely check that out if you haven't. But I think I was sitting there, watching the presentation. I'm like, oh, this is really cool. I like the retro cues. I like the bench seat in the front. There's a lot of really cool things that I think are amazingly brave of them to do, but I'm fully in support of them, and I absolutely love it for it. But then whenever, like, next slide was like, and it's going to have a range extender, hybrid thing, I was like, bingo. Like, that was ding, 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 ding. Like, that's gonna be the big deal. And so I'm excited for them to arrive. I think the only thing I will say is, like, Broncos are slow sellers these days. Wranglers are selling fine, but just because it's a Wrangler, and they're always going to kind of sell no matter what they do. But I worry that Ford has already found the limit to that kind of stuff. And I mean, no one has an electric Wrangler or electric Bronco, and Scout is beating them to that. But I worry that the timing, even with the range extender, still isn't the best timing. And I'm also worried that since Volkswagen is, still steering the ship from a high level kind of standpoint, I'm worried that they're going, especially if the tariff stuff gets rough, that they're going to, try and find some way to cut back production of the Scouts and confiscate some of that factory to build other high volume Volkswagen things that they really need built. Because, US factories that are, going to be coming online here in this administration already, are going to be very, very, very valuable. So, I hope that they don't derail Scout too much. And I hope that it does as well. But I mean, this is another thing. If you want Scout to stick around, like, you have to be an early adopter, because I'm worried, especially, okay, even if they fully commit to, Scout is only going to be the only thing we're going to build at the Scout factory. If it isn't a red hot seller out of the gate, they're going to find every excuse to be like, all right, let's put it on the back burner and, churn out as many Tiguans or whatever they can instead there, so we'll see. But I'm very excited for Scout. And Harsha says, a piece of crap driver in the new Honda Accord hybrid decided to tailgate me. We split another lane to pass. He split another lane to pass me, only to tailgate a GR Corolla, and then to pass the Corolla, he decided to jump into the bus lane and almost hit a bus. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, I've seen some interesting driving this weekend as well. People just not being very good drivers. One person was like, I don't know what they're doing, but they're actually, like, struggling to, like, stay off of the shoulder. And I'm like, are you all right? I don't know. I mean, it was like, and it was the middle of the day, so it wasn't even like late night or anything. But anyway, yeah, interesting. We all gotta stay safe out there and drive defensively. And Zachary, thanks for stopping by. He says, Ford, we're doing a Fox Body tribute. I hope that they do that someday. That would be, yeah, that's a no-brainer, like we said earlier here. And Steven says, I remember when you had the BRZ. Yeah, good old days. Over 10 years ago now. It's crazy how time flies. Bry says, I missed the weekly updates. I know. I apologize. I can't keep doing them. But yeah, hopefully talking a little bit of car news here and these is enjoyable for you guys. And yeah, we'll see. I may even do a few other little different things and try new things here on the channel and kind of switch things up. We'll see how things go. But I think I'm going to, I can finally say that I will be, hopefully this summer, doing more junkyard walk videos. I know I did one of those about 2 years ago, I think now, and I know I've talked about it many times in the past. I really want to do more of those. And I think I've finally pieced together a plan to do that maybe once every week or every 2 weeks. And heads up, it's probably going to be a new channel, because I think, that's one thing one lesson I kind of learned with the weekly updates here is, the algorithm gets really confused if you have too many different niches. And I think even though car news and new car reviews should kind of have an audience overlap, I think the channels that do car news the best are channels that have only car news or only reviews, and separate those two. And, it's I just think with the weekly updates, it's shown, even with the algorithm, I think I still have found the limit to that because I see other people that do videos, and whenever the videos aren't clickbaity, I see the views they get, and they're probably better views than the weekly updates got, but not enough to really move the needle for me, most likely. But I really am excited for doing junkyard walks, and I think I have a good formula. I have a good rotation of junkyards that I'm going to be doing to always be going to a different place, so I have fairly regular content, and hopefully have a lot of fun, so that even if everyone quits buying cars because prices are completely insane and no one has any money, in the future, we can all just, treasure hunt in junkyards and see the crazy fun stuff. And I think that's something that, most of you hopefully will enjoy. And, I'll still be doing car reviews. I still want to do car reviews no matter what. And, whether I do used or new, we'll see. But I think, I really think the junkyard walks have a promising future, so stay tuned for that. I probably won't be starting them up till July, but stay tuned for an announcement on a new channel name and a new channel, for those of you that are interested and want to see that in the future here. But yeah, nothing's going away here, don't worry, we'll still be doing car reviews here. Let me see. I think, oh yeah, we got a few other super chats. I apologize, guys. It wasn't letting me know about these till now. But Jordan, thank you for a super chat. He says, since 2019, I've been screaming on your lives for a Ford lithium production car. Never give up. I know. I'd love to see Ford do an electric manual Mustang. That'd be really cool. But I think especially, again, with the administration right now, don't expect anything like that until 2030 at the earliest, unfortunately. Thank you so much for the super chat, and I'll let you know if I ever hear anything about a production lithium. And Marco, thank you so much for super chat as well. He says, I have to hop off soon, but it's a 2019 STI Lapis. Oh, nice. I don't know what the Lapis is, unless that's just a typo for STI. I don't know, but we wouldn't have said STI twice. So maybe that's a kind we don't get here in the States. I'm not sure. Or is Lapis blue? Was that? They didn't call it that though, did they? I can't remember. There was like an edition blue or something. I don't remember how they did those special edition names back in the day. But anyway, 2019 STI, super fun car. You'll have a blast with it, I'm sure. And congrats, and I hope you enjoy it to the fullest. And thank you so much for stopping by and for the super chat. And Stratus Edge, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, reserve the new Model 3 for a day 2 or a 2-day demo drive at a new Tesla center that opened up in my town this week. I wish more dealerships did extended drives. Yeah, I mean, I feel like dealers kind of played around with extended test drives. I still occasionally will see like an ad for a 24-hour test drive. Some places seem to dabble in that a little bit. But yeah, it is something that I think it's just kind of tricky. Just because, I mean, even if you're starting with a car that has 0 miles, which is rare on its own, it's just that you have miles on a car, and dealers don't like putting new miles on a new car. If we're talking used stuff, by all means, like I don't know why like CarMax, for example, doesn't do like weekend test drives or something like that. Maybe they do. I don't follow CarMax enough to say, but I think used dealers, it makes a ton of sense because who cares? You put another 300 miles on it or whatever, like it doesn't matter. It's a used car. But for new stuff, I can see the hesitation there. And so yeah, I mean with Tesla, I think especially these days they're so desperate that if that moves the needle for some people and helps sell cars, I think they are going to be happy to deliver cars with a few hundred miles on them, if that's what it takes to get the right buyer to be convinced of its greatness or whatever. So yeah, it's an interesting idea though, especially as we go into this like digital age of car sales and stuff. I kind of wonder, will there be? I mean, it seems like there's less and less test drives is actually what the statistics show, which is why I think you see a lot of car companies that have pedaled back on these longer test drives. Because I think most people, modern cars always have plenty of power. They always are really nice to drive. There's not very many terrible cars. I think, it still totally makes sense to at least sit in a car, make sure you're a good fit, and that you like the way things are set up. I think a test drive is still very much a good idea, but it seems like less and less people are doing that these days too. So maybe that's part of why there's some of that, in the car world. I'm not sure. And Cars, thanks so much for being a member for 11 months now. I really appreciate the support. And he says, my spots are a Cadillac XLR and my friend's 2025 Ram RHO. Anyway, time for me to get ready for dinner. Glad I got to stop by and say hi. Keep being awesome. Thanks so much for stopping by. Have a great dinner and a great week. Sorry, choking. But thanks so much. And yeah, I'll see you on the next one, Cars. Thanks for stopping by. And Confirmation, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, do you think Stellantis should bring PSA cars rebadges Chrysler products to revive the brand with fresh product, or bring a PSA brand itself? I don't think we need the brands, honestly, because that's always an uphill battle. But I absolutely agree that, yes, we should get rebadged PSAs as Chryslers. And, if you look at a lot of the Peugeots, they're a little more of a classier kind of vibe that I think would actually work with Chrysler. Like if you look at, look up a Peugeot, website for pick your country in the EU there, and imagine all those with Chrysler badges. I can kind of see it pretty easily, in my opinion. And I always wondered, when we had these giant conglomerates of these mergers, I'm like, yeah, that's what I was expecting. It's like, well, what are you merging for if you're not going to pull your resources here? Like, if you're going to keep everything separate, then like, what's the point of merging? I get everything mixed in there, and just blend it all. I think take the best stuff from your greatest hits collection in Europe, bring it over as Chryslers or Dodges or whatever you want. I could go all day with like a fantasy football list almost of like, oh yeah, we'll pick this one from here, this one from here. We're going to put it here and here. I'll come up with this new name and that new name. And, we'll do these little tweaks here and there. Maybe that's a good video idea of like, here's what I would do if I, had every model in the Stellantis empire to work with. Like, here's the things I bring over. Here's how I would market them. Although I feel like that's something like I should be charging a consultant fee for, but I think that could be a fun video idea maybe someday. But yeah, I totally agree. That's a great idea. And thank you for the super chat as well. But it would be fun to have the other brands here too. Like, I'm so jealous. I guess this isn't in the PSA group, but Renault, like that Renault 5 that now Nissan's going to have the Micra. I don't know if we're going to get that here in the States, but like that Renault 5 looks so sweet. I love my little Fiat 500e, but that'd be a really fun little thing to like go into after the 500e, possibly, if that was available here. I'd love that little Renault 5. It looks so cool. And thank you again for the super chat. And Jordan, thank you for a super chat as well. He says, in history, have there ever been any car brands that were vandalized for political reasons besides Tesla? I don't think so. I am old enough to remember that like Hummers kind of got a bad rap towards the end of their life cycle there. There was always people that frowned on them. And I remember a lot of like environmental sites that were really, just bashing Hummers for being such gas guzzlers. But I don't recall any vandalizing or anything. And I can't recall any other car where the car company was targeted. Because any other political and car stuff that's been tied up is all ancient history. And you look at as soon as the late 50s, the early 60s, like people were buying Volkswagen Beetles and there was no hate there, even though Volkswagen, doesn't have great roots. And so, but that kind of fixed itself even so quickly after the gigantic World War II. And even Ford has their questionable past and things like that. And that stuff never has gotten to that kind of a boiling point. I think it's just it's just a unique Tesla problem because again, Elon just can't lay low, can't just keep to himself, and has got to just be so extra about everything. And so I think any other human being, I don't even have to say executive or like anyone who has any kind of political instincts or any kind of self-preservation instincts whatsoever, would have backed down, would have stayed quiet, would have like not escalated that to the place that it got to. And again, maybe it was just, his idea of a power grab or whatever that, just ended up failing or what. But like, that's just, it's just on him, and just him being the polarizing figure he is. And every other CEO and any other billionaire for that matter is smart enough to keep their nose down for the most part, or be philanthropic if you want to be even better, and actually, be trying to help society in actual charitable ways, not just with companies, but with other things as well. So I don't think there's anything. If the only other thing I can see in the future is like if Jeff Bezos ends up becoming more involved in Slate, since he is a financial backer, if he really goes off the rails and starts doing every drug in the, imaginable, that, maybe we could see Slate go down a similar path. But I think, again, he's just a distant backer. It doesn't seem like, he's not, an executive of the company. I don't think he really has any say necessarily. So I'm hoping Slate will be safe from that, because it seems like a great little idea with the Slate. So we'll just have to see. But I don't think there's anything. And maybe others that know their history better than I do can maybe think of some others. I see Harsha says the Trabant was used to break the Berlin Wall in 1991. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Well, I guess that's a good. Yeah. See, I don't know as much about the European car culture and like that stuff, but yeah, all the cars that were literally made in the Soviet Union and stuff. There's some of those things that probably had some very painful ties that like on Top Gear, they were just jokes, but like, it might have been a lot of anger and stuff that resulted in maybe people targeting Trabants and, other things like that in the, in the 90s. I'm not sure. I don't know enough about European culture back then to know, but, yeah, it's an interesting question. Thanks for bringing that up, Jordan. Thank you for the super chat. And Confirmation, thank you for another super chat as well. He says, Vauxhall cars were vandalized in Northern Ireland because of the Troubles. GM learned how that wasn't ideal, so they kept the Opel badges in Ireland. Interesting. Okay, I didn't know that either, so thanks for the info. And yeah, we're all learning new stuff tonight. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And yeah, so, but there's an example like GM learned, like, hey, people don't like this. I guess, you could say Elon has learned too, because he did back down and he is, separating himself. Although now the beef this week, the whole debate is like, was it voluntary? Was it not voluntary? Did Trump kick him out? Did he not? It's yeah, I don't want to like turn this into a political like chat, so I won't like go full into it, but I will say that this week, again, before the riots, at least, was a very cathartic week in the news for me, because I knew it was going to happen. I saw the Elon thing coming from a mile away. I knew it was going to fall out, and I knew it was going to happen sooner rather than later. And me and zillions of other people called this from a mile away. But it's just like so predictable. Like I knew they were going to hate each other, and sure enough, they didn't waste any time with that. And so anyway, let me see. So where were we here? Zachary says also Ford makes expensive appearance packages that looks nothing like a Fox body. So maybe I missed something this week. Is they did a Fox body tribute Mustang? I guess I must have missed that. I don't know. The car stuff that I follow, I guess, hasn't talked about that. So I'll have to look into that. So you actually were referring to something. I thought we were talking about the Fox body discussion earlier, but interesting. I'll have to check that out. But that sounds on brand for Ford to just do, paint color and stickers, I'm assuming, and not much else. But I haven't seen that, so I'll have to check it out. Thanks for the heads up, Zachary. And see, Pete, thanks for stopping by. And Rafi, thanks for stopping by as well. He says, hey, Matt, I finally made after a good while. Hello. Thanks for stopping by, Rafi. Hope you're doing well. And thanks for continuing to be a member as well. I really appreciate it. And Rafi also says, spotted this week was a Murano Cross Cabriolet with the top down. Nice. Someone actually enjoying their Murano convertible. That's funny. And always a fun spot. Lancelot says, my favorite bumper sticker is my other car is a 2. So I don't know. You mean like a insert car brand here? Because I know there's a lot of people that do that, but I haven't seen one that says 2. If you're talking literally there. That's interesting. And Mystical says, what's up, Matt? How are you doing? I'm doing well. Hope you're doing well too. Thanks for stopping by. PK says, do you think Nissan will actually go under, or is the media overreacting? I don't know what to believe. The insider scoop or whatever, back in the fall said that they had 12 to 16 months to live without any other financial backing. I don't know if that's even true or not, but assuming that is true, that gives them until the fall or the spring of next year, maybe. Um, I just don't know. I think it's still, we haven't really heard a whole lot since the whole, merger thing fell through. So I really don't know. Um, they're doing a good job of being open about the products that are coming down the pipeline and stuff, but they're not talking about immediate money. I don't think they've said like, hey, we have enough cash to get through X amount of months or years or anything. So, it might, because the thing is, I feel like we've seen this before with like companies saying, oh, we got all these plans, we got all these great things coming down the road and all this. And then, the lights turn off. And then it's like, okay, well, we're not going to see all these new Fiskars they were planning. We're not going to see all this, other crazy, canoe trucks or, take your pick. And obviously Nissan's not some crazy startup, but like, just because you've got plans and you have, a fully functioning company right now doesn't mean you have enough money to keep the lights on, So I don't know. I hope the best for them. And, I feel like Nissan is also, it's one of those like too big to fail kind of things, where, kind of like how we saw with the recession here in 2008 with the American brands. I think the Japanese government will find some way to bail them out. So I don't think they're going to go away completely. I've seen some comments. People are like, oh, I'm not buying a Nissan anymore because like there won't be anyone to service them in a year or something. And it's like, it's not going to be like that. Like, and I mean, Nissan's been around forever. It's there's going to be Nissan service stations and mechanics that know how to work on Nissans no matter what, and they will honor warranties and stuff. That's all, again, we saw this playbook with Suzuki when they left the States. They're still servicing them. There's still, warranty coverage, all that kind of stuff. So I think maybe some of the YouTube videos that are probably almost certainly overreacting with clickbait and just BS to get clicks, is an overreaction. I think Nissan hopefully will be okay, but even if they go under, it's not going to be this catastrophic thing. It will be, them declaring bankruptcy or whatever, the Japanese government stepping in and, working something out. But Nissan, I think, will stick around as a brand and, has some kind of future. I just don't know what. And Raphael says, I did see a Gen 3 Celica as part of a line of JDM cars. That took me back. I had an 84 Celica GTS. That's awesome. And it's cool you got to see, an old Celica there. I think I saw a white one with flip-up headlights, I think, a while back. And I was like, man, I haven't seen one of those in forever. It's always fun to see, the people that keep those kinds of things on the road. And Jordan says, first time seeing a Lotus in real life. I didn't realize how tiny they are. Is the Lotus Tesla collab in a museum somewhere? Should Tesla have continued the joint venture with Lotus? Well, I think, they bought some of the, stuff for, from Lotus as far as doing the Tesla Roadster there. But I don't know if it was a formal partnership. Like, I don't think there was ever anything where Lotus came out and was like, we're working with Tesla. I think it was just like Tesla worked out a deal for the supplier stuff, basically, and just kind of cobbled it together on their own in a way. But I think there's a Roadster in the Peterson Museum in LA, if I remember correctly. And I don't know, though, if there's any others in any other museum. But yeah, the Tesla Roadster, I remember there was a few of those, because I was at Virginia Tech in college whenever they came out, and a few of like the professors or just, wealthy people that wanted to have a fun electric toy, had some of them. And yeah, they're always really cool to see. And Harsha says, it's 85 degrees outside today. My Tesla's battery seems to be draining much faster due to the cabin overheat protection. Do you have increased battery drain in your Mach-E due to the warmer weather? No, no battery drain, because I don't do the like cabin conditioning stuff. It's just, yeah, it's something, when we like originally got it, I was thinking maybe it'd be something I do, but yeah, the app isn't amazing with setting that stuff up either, in my opinion. And I think it's also one of those things like I've never done it, so I don't feel a need to. It's almost like, if you've never experienced a heated steering wheel, like, don't, because if you do, you're never going to want to go back. So I think it's one of those things I don't want to like, open the door to that, and then have like my 4-year-old daughter, for example, expect a freezing cold car every summer day when we get into it or whatever. So I've never tried. I'm sure that would, of course, drain the battery, but I don't have any kind of automatic air, HVAC going or anything. So yeah, batteries, the fantastic, life you get in the summer is really great. So yeah, Maki's still treating us well though. I also heard that I think doing that I think Tesla's probably figured it out at this point, but I think in some vehicles, including the Mach-E, that does have a potential to drain the 12-volt battery at times, because that forces it to always like check the data connection as far as your settings and as far as like it having to be on a timer and kicking itself on, and then it uses the actual big battery to power those accessories eventually, but all that stuff eventually, or first, gets kicked on by the 12 volt. So I've heard there can be some premature 12 volt battery wear whenever you do that, kind of cabin conditioning stuff in other vehicles. I don't know how much truth there is to that, but another reason why I'm just like, because 12 volt batteries are a real weak spot with most EVs, and I just don't want to have to worry about that. I mean, the Mach-E, I'm already slightly worried because they're saying 12 volt batteries usually only last about 3 years in Mach-Es, and I'm at the 3-year mark here in like 2 months. So ours hasn't given us any symptoms of 12 volt failure yet. So knock on wood, that hopefully, it's going to be good for a while. But if I start seeing some warning signs, I'm just going to take it to the dealer soon too, just to have them probably do a little check before we're out of our 3-year bumper to bumper warranty and see if there's anything they can find to fix before it's out of that. And speaking of the Mach-E, we are kicking around the idea of possibly getting rid of it early for either another Mach-E or something else, just because, again, like I kind of the same motivation with the Fiat, I wanted to get something before tax credits go away, and the Mach-E lease isn't up until the summer of 2026. Fairly confident that the tax credits will probably be gone by then, and I don't want to miss out on a really good lease deal. And thankfully, because Mach-E's have gone up in value recently, I think because of the buying frenzy here, and also the fact that they're going to be more scarce here, again, if tariffs continue to do their thing. The Mach-E value, it was down to like 22 to 25, and now it's between like 26 to 29 or so. And so we're getting about to the point where I could trade it in and kind of have a break-even point. So we're thinking about possibly, I have a busy rest of this month, but I'm thinking possibly in July or tail end of June here, if I can kind of catch, if Ford is still doing that employee pricing thing, if we can get a killer deal on a new Mach-E lease or something, because we really love the eruption green color. And so may go into that. I know there's been some Cadillac Lyric deals floating around for like $400 a month. So I'm just going to see what's out there here in a couple of weeks. And usually end of month is kind of the best time too. So I'm thinking maybe last week of this month, maybe see if I can strike and get a good possible deal. Again, we'll just have to see if anyone's willing to actually, pay what we need for the Mach-E to get out of it. But I'm considering making a move there. Potentially also just because it would save us money, because we're paying more than $400 a month now. And if I can get a Lyric or something for, less, then we're saving money as well. So we'll see. But that's another thing I'm working on here. Lots of things going on. Mach-E stuff, new channel stuff, and some other little tweaks I'm thinking about making as well here. But Kraken says, just sent the updated image. Nothing special, but I took it today. Just dropped it off at a local detailer to get the hood PPF. Nice. Yeah, PPF is always a great call. And I'll check it out here later and post it up for Member Car of the Week tomorrow. So thank you, Kraken. And let me see. Lancelot says, I programmed the exhaust of the Charger EV to sound like an ice cream truck. Yeah, you should be able to do whatever you want, as long as it's not like something, cringy or offensive or anything. Like, I think it'd be fun. Although I guess the ice cream truck would be kind of cruel for kids that would get really excited hearing that. Like my daughter, it's like, we could be anywhere in the house, and like we hear the slightest, faintest sound of the ice cream truck, and it's like, man, we gotta go. Like it's like it's really effective. So that would be kind of cruel to kids, but other than that, it would be very funny. And Zachary says, I talked to a guy that has one of the nicest cars I've seen in a long time. It was a 67 427 Corvette that was all original with only 45,000 miles. It was a rare Goodwood green, almost Highland green. Nice. I've seen that color before at a car show. That's beautiful car, I'm sure. And it's cool you got to talk to the owner too. That's always extra fun when you get to, hear stories and things like that. I love talking to old classic car owners, because man, the stories that so many of them can tell and stuff. Even just like talking with like older people in general is, it's for me just like it's like a time travel almost of, the ones that are really sharp and also really old that are able to like tell you these stories from long ago is very, very fun. So it's awesome. Hope you had a great time and a great weekend here. They also said it was so nice seeing an unrestored classic in great shape. Yeah, and that takes so much dedication, to keep something like that up for so long. And let me see. Jimmy also says, you ever think about changing up how you do car videos? Make it exciting. No hate. All the videos seem the same. I would love to see something new and fresh. Love the video regardless. So, I think with the car reviews, I know a lot of people have been conditioned to, Top Gear style stuff where you have some adventure all the time or some new setting or some new goal or different ways of doing things. And obviously that's very entertaining. I enjoy Top Gear like everybody else, back in the day. I think one, it's a lot harder to do that because you always got to find some interesting, crazy, click-worthy thing to do, which is exhausting. Ask any vlogger, how do you keep having a highlight reel every day? How do you always have an exciting life every single day? And so, I mean, that's very much a challenge. So that's the main thing, versus my stuff's very formulaic, and that means it's quick to bang out. So if I have a limited amount of time and I gotta hurry up and do something, I can. And also I just will say I'm not the most creative person. So I'm like, how else do I say all the things I need to say and drive the car? So again, unless I'm like doing more of an adventure video and less of a review, like for me, it's like I want to get the reviews even shorter anyway. And so it's like if I'm trying to cram in everything I want to say, and cover everything, which I think I want to do a comprehensive car review. And I think that's also where I think it would be beneficial to do like even two separate channels for car reviews, of like one channel that's like consumer advice, like people that are shopping for a car that say, I need to know how big is the trunk in this? Does my car seat fit in the back? I mean, those are boring things, but that's very valuable information. And I'm primarily doing these car reviews to help people find a car they will love. That's been my goal the whole time. The entertainment stuff is fun and it's a nice perk, and I'm happy if I also can entertain as well. And I mean, there's fun ways to do that. Again, like Jeremy Clarkson, I remember his Ford Fiesta review for Top Gear, where he's like, look, I can fit hand grenades in the cup holders. They made the cup holders bigger. And, you can fit Marines in the back or whatever. Like there's those types of things you can do. Obviously, again, that's like a whole nother level from a production and budget and standpoint, all that kind of stuff. But like, there are creative ways to bundle some of that information in, and that's kind of part of the challenge. But, even with ChatGPT and things like that have kind of helped me creatively, to come up with titles sometimes or things like that. It still is just very much a struggle to say, okay, well, how am I going to outdo myself with this one? How am I going to make this review exciting when we're reviewing a Nissan Rogue or something, And so I think that's why for me it's also picking the right car so that it's just exciting by nature. But yeah, I just like all the other ideas that people have floated in the past, as far as like having a buddy review. I don't have a buddy that's close enough, that's good enough on camera, that's has strong enough opinions, that's knowledgeable enough to not get blasted in the comments. I mean, like finding a co-host that's super close and that is very hard, and I also don't get the views to pay anyone anyway. So like that, the whole buddy thing, I mean, I know I missed that boat back in 2018. Straight Pipes kind of came onto the scene with that, and took away a bunch of views from me and a bunch of other people because it was a new exciting way to review cars. Throttle House did a great job with that, and now it seems like Throttle House is riding that all the way to now having their own Top Gear America or whatever that they're going to be on. And so I mean, it clearly has worked for a lot of people. It just, for me, being in Pittsburgh was kind of a limiting factor, I think, too, a little bit. But it's really hard. I'm always open to new ideas and new suggestions. If you have other ways of doing a car review that's, is exciting, I'm all ears. I'm absolutely all ears because I'm not going to pretend like I got this all figured out or I have the best way, I am always open to, different suggestions. So let me know. And, maybe there's something I can incorporate or something I can change. I am not married to doing them the way I'm doing them. Just for me, like that's the only way to do them in a way that is helpful. To actual car buyers. And that's really the driving factor for me. But happy to hear any suggestions from anyone. It's always great, some of the stuff you guys bring up, and that's been some of the things that I've taken some of that feedback. And for example, there was a lot of good reception for the junkyard video, and people saying they'd like to see that here in the live streams again. So that's another one where it's like, okay, people seem excited about that. First one got decent views a couple of years ago. That gives me the ammo I need to move forward and try and pursue that, and try something different, and I think that's why I'm excited for the junkyard stuff, is completely different, not car reviews, just me having fun in a junkyard. I think that has a good potential. We'll see. Let me see. Harsha says a BMW EV with M5 V10 noise and Porsche Taycan EV with Carrera GT noise would be fantastic. I'm glad you agree. Yeah, that kind of stuff would be awesome. Jay Jeeb said, hey man, I'll be back in Pittsburgh in July if you want to review my Model Y 2026. I appreciate the offer. We will see how things are in July. I've been avoiding Tesla reviews just because it's too polarizing, and I don't want to, because that could be read any number of ways. And I just don't want to have anything divisive like that. I feel like with the weekly updates and talking about tariffs have been divisive enough. And Tesla in a lot of the car reviewing world is just completely a lot of people do not want to cover them anymore, and I'm in that camp, but just because it's not worth it with how everyone's been dumping them so fast. It's just not something that's that is, it's also just such an unpredictable company right now as far as their future and stuff, that do I want to recommend to people to buy a car Model Y is really well priced. It has some really good stuff. I actually am going to be covering this. I did a review recently. I just filmed a review on a Hyundai Ioniq 5, and I talked about how the Model Y is priced better and there's some perks to it, but there's also a lot of baggage, and you also have the risk of bad depreciation. And, I don't mind recommending a car and warning people hey, this thing might depreciate terribly. You might not be able to sell it for anything if you ever want to get rid of it. But that's just it's just for me something. I have so many cars I need to review. I have so many cool old, muscle cars. I have a list of probably 50 or more cars, just on the East Coast that are waiting for me. So I think if I'm going to devote time to a review, it's got to be something that I think is going to have a good chance of success and not drag the channel down. Unfortunately, that's just too divisive of a car right now. I hope you enjoy yours. And for those who don't have a problem with Tesla, I hope you enjoy it in good health, but it's still just just not something. I don't want to put myself in the channel under that magnifying glass right now. Let me see. Hope you enjoyed Pittsburgh though as well, and thank you again for the offer. I really appreciate that too. And Altruistic says mom is looking to size up from her F15 X5 50i. Had since new. Thoughts on the LX 600 versus 1794 Sequoia, or maybe a mid-tier Escalade? Well, it comes down to, obviously your mom has possibly narrowed it down to those vehicles. So I'd have to know what she likes about those things to, make those be the top vehicles, that she's considering right now. I do not like LX 600, and I also don't like Sequoia. The problem is Sequoia has a terribly done cargo space. It also doesn't have a lot of second row headroom. I'm only 5'8.5" or whatever, and I really don't have a lot of headroom. You can see it in my Sequoia review. I talked about it when I reviewed the Sequoia. So Sequoia is just horribly packaged, in my opinion. It's a great vehicle as far as power is fantastic. The front of the interior, the dash and all that is all great stuff. It's just they screwed up the second row, in my opinion, and they screwed up the cargo space. So I actually don't recommend Sequoia to really hardly anyone anymore. I mean, there's a very narrow use case if you are never putting anyone in the cargo space or in the or any stuff in the cargo space or anything in the second or third rows. I guess again, if you really like the power, Sequoia could be a good choice for that very small niche of a buyer. LX600 is another example. Terrible packaging. Like LX600 has like no space in the second row, and it's an executive second row. If you want to hear Beth and I go off in an interior review, watch our LX600 interior review. We had the like executive transport one, which is like $130,000, has this big massaging reclining sofa of a second row seat, and Beth couldn't fully extend her legs, even with the seat all the way back. They ditched the third row in that one to give you this giant second row, and it has less second row space than like most compact SUVs. Like it's ridiculous. And again, maybe it makes sense in Japan or other places where like that is great. But again, Escalade all day, every day. Like not even close. Escalade is hands down the superior one. I'd even go so far as to say, I mean, like, you're talking Sequoia. If you're okay with regular brands, I mean, Tahoe's better. I mean, Expedition. I just did the new Expedition. That's great. Even honestly, I'd even take Wagoneer, even though Wagoneer seems a little glitchy. Hopefully they've worked most of the bugs out at this point. I'd take that. If you have more space in Wagoneer than those as well, better cargo space in Wagoneer. I mean, so I'd take any of the Americans over LX600 or Sequoia personally. And honestly, it's so bad. I'd recommend Armada before I'd recommend Sequoia. And for LX600, I'd recommend QX80. And I mean, it's not like those Armada and QX80 are bad, but like they're typically not my first recommendations either, because I do think the Americans still do it better. But I think Nissan has actually done that better than Toyota, which is, a rare thing these days. But I think that's certainly the case. QX80 is more luxurious feeling than LX600 by a long shot, in my opinion. So again, if your mom has reasons for why she likes LX or Sequoia and it fits what she's looking for, by all means, go for it. I mean, they're solid, reliable vehicles. And so just definitely sit in it, check it out, drive it, see what you think or what she thinks. But yeah, that's my thoughts on that. Hopefully it helps you a little bit. But it's kind of like, it's funny because like the Sequoia and the LX are like the two, like it's like worst things in my opinion, as far as just again packaging and stuff. So if you value the same things I do, steer clear of those, but don't want to rain on your parade if you're excited about those as well. And maybe Gaming BH says, any update on the Yugo? Whenever I go back home to southeastern Europe, I see Yugos and also police Lada Niveas in the mountainous regions. Very cool. I haven't heard anything about that really. I think the last thing I heard was that they say it's going to go on sale in I think 2028 or something like that. And they said that it's going to have gas engines and stuff, which is good, especially for a low cost car like that. And then there was one other thing that I did hear about like a week after I did the weekly update on it, but I don't remember what it was that was new about it. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like they're actually going to make it in good volumes and like it's going to be a regular thing. So we'll see. Hope it works, well for them. Raphael says, couldn't you just sample a current LFA and make a sound from it? Yeah, that's totally fine too. I was just thinking if they, didn't want to do the extra little bit of work, but yeah, you could absolutely, send the Toyota audio video guy down to, rev up the LFA that's at the Toyota headquarters there. And make a recording there, throw it on a dyno, and call it a day. Wouldn't be hard for sure. And let me see. Raphael says the Hemi coming back proves my point. We don't hate electric, just give us the sound we want. Yeah, I mean, sound is great. It's just, yeah, I mean, I think there still needs to be progress as far as emissions, in my opinion. I know a lot of people don't care about that, and that's fine. I'm not going to have an emissions tangent here, but it's just like, great, we've got good sound. We can have good sound. Ioniq 5N has great sound, and doesn't come at the cost of emissions, you know? So I don't think it has to be this everything or nothing thing. This is why we're talking about the other EVs, like pick whatever sounds you want, have all that fantastic sound. I mean, that's what I loved about Ioniq 5N is I was driving down the highway with crackling and popping inside the car, and it was all electric. And yes, it wasn't real, but like I was still having fun. And I know everyone's different and a lot of people would hate that or whatever, but like to me, there's alternatives that don't also just put a middle finger to the environment, in my opinion, you know. So that's my only holdup with the Hemi thing. You know, again, it's only gonna be for a few years. They are still going to the electric thing. So, you know, but I'm personally, you know, just like hoping we have some progress. And like I've said in the past, like I was hoping like new Hellcat was like maybe the naturally aspirated Hemi V8 with like a plug-in hybrid thing for the extra 200 horsepower instead of a supercharger. Still have 700 horsepower, still have an awesome V8 sound, but you have some electrification. Then you have the plug-in hybrid capability to, you know, maybe electrify your commute if you are so inclined as a Hellcat owner, which is probably nobody, but like, you know, some kind of progress like that would have helped me to feel better about it instead of just being like, yeah, let's throw this whole Hemi in that we've had since 2003. Let's just chuck that in there. I know it has e-torque, but that's just a fancy stop-start system. Doesn't really do much, you know, and it's just like, I just wish there was more progress there. But, you know, again, they need the win. They need the money. And so for them, it's an easy cash grab. And clearly, again, people are literally going to pay $1,200 extra for less horsepower just because of the sound. And so that's where Dodge is at, and that's been their marketing for a long time. So that's their grave they've buried, and you know that's that's what they're stuck with is, you know, that's their base now. And so great, they have Hemi for another 4 years, and then once they have to get serious about emissions again, then what do? You lose all those people all over again. And so this is why, like, this is just a band-aid to me. Like, this is just a band-aid. Like, it's not going to last, and it's just going to piss off all these people again whenever they get rid of the V8 again in a few years. And then they're right back to square one of trying to convince people that the, you know, downsizing is better, that the electrification is better. And obviously the tech will be better for all that stuff in a few years, especially the EVs. But they're still going to be in that same problem. So like, yeah, Dodge has got a great 4 years, or Ram has a great 4 years ahead of them here. But once the music stops, and it will stop at some point, you know, then where do they go? And, you know, I that's why I'm worried still for Ram long term, because if you know, Ram Charger isn't a big hit, and if they can't get people to get the electric one, you know, while Lightning still sells and Ford has all these other cool electric trucks coming supposedly, and you know, GM's still doing their electric thing, and Cadillac sales are fantastic. They're actually making that transition, and people are like, yeah, I want an electric Cadillac. Like I think GM is actually winning that tug of war slowly but surely. And I think they are actually converting a lot of people to EV, you know, drivers. And I think Bolt is going to be a huge, big, you know, thing to do that as well. So I think that like, it doesn't have to be this like, oh no, people won't buy it, let's give up. Like GM has said like, no, we're still sticking with this. And they are, I think, proving that you can make that transition. It's hard, but you can do it. And Dodge just chose to not, you know, kind of do that wholeheartedly, you know, for the next few years here. They're still going to do it. And so that's why I was glad to hear Tim say this week, like, we're still doing that. But, you know, it's just a band-aid. So that's why I'm worried for. I want Ram to do well, but I'm doing well isn't going to be pretending you can just have gas guzzlers for the rest of the time. Like, it's not going to work. Anyway, let me see. So Rich Bounty Hunter, thanks for stopping by. Kraken says, I'll be at Watkins Glen for N Club PA in 2 weeks. Thanks to Hyundai, IMSA race, and Car Corral on the track. That's awesome. I'm glad that Hyundai's showing you some love as well with that. It seems like you're a great ambassador for the N brand there. And so hopefully they keep working with you, and that's going to be awesome, I'm sure. So congrats on that. And let me see, Crack is asking about the color for the STI we were talking about earlier there. I think World Rally Blue is different, but I think someone else was talking about that here later on. I saw a comment, so we'll keep on going through the comments here. And sorry, I missed the other two super chats here. I apologize, guys, for the wait. So Jordan, thank you for super chat. He says, do a midweek live junkyard walkthrough. The live junkyard walk thing was something I had talked about in the past about, you know, that could be a cool idea. since thought more about the live junkyard thing, and I think live would just make it less consumable because there's gonna be a lot of downtime, of walking between, car to car. I think doing highlights is gonna be the more engaging way to do that. And there's still gonna be plenty of stuff. Like, I mean, the junkyard walk I did a couple years ago was like almost half an hour long still. So like it's still gonna be a lot of content without having all the boring stuff. And in the future, I'm open to doing them live potentially, but like for me, I still feel like, live. I mean, like even for example, these live streams, it's 2 hours long. The average view duration for these live streams is 16 minutes. People stick around on average 16 minutes, and then they bail, or whenever they're watching it after the fact, they watch 16 minutes and they leave. It's long. And as we're here live, it makes sense for us, but like for these junkyard videos, I want them to kind of have an evergreen kind of nature, and people be able to find it on their recommendations page and say, oh, that was fun, I'll subscribe, and I'm going to keep watching these, because again, it's like highlights. And I'm trying to learn from the TV shows like American Pickers or all these other shows where they're treasure hunting as well. They're not showing you all the boring stuff they see. They only show you the cool handful of things they see for that day or that week or whatever. And so I think making sure that is curated and edited to be just the highlights, I think is a better way to do those. I mean, I'm open to experimenting in the future, but I also don't want to waste a junkyard visit on a thing that gets 1,000 views and no one sits through more than 16 minutes of it, because these junkyards I'm walking through are big junkyards where it takes me over an hour to walk through it all, even if I'm walking quickly. So like it would be a long live stream, and I don't know if that's the best way to do that. Maybe in the future, as people go to live stuff, I think especially where I see myself doing more lives in the future is as AI continues to take over more and more with content. I think live is going to be insanely valuable because you're not going to be able to fake it. And everything else is going to be fake here in a year or two. Everything is going to be fake. And no one's going to know what's real. It's going to be such a mind F in so many ways. And so I think live is going to really be insanely important very soon, but not quite yet. And I want to try and establish this other junkyard channel before everything becomes this bizarro land. And so establish it and establish the viewer base of people that enjoy junkyard stuff. And then once we're doing that, then maybe go into doing them live in the future. But I think for the first year or so here, I want to try and just do them edited and see how that goes. But I'm, again, going to totally just kind of see what the feedback's like and kind of go from there. But thank you so much, Jordan, for the super chat. And I hope you enjoy the junkyard walks once they do start up. And Notorious CRG, thank you so much for a super chat as well. He says, do you still stand by your Camry review being much more fun to drive than the Accord and Sonata? I'm a Honda guy, but that Camry is nice. Yeah, I think I still do stand by that all-wheel drive new XSE, being so fun with the quick throttle response and just the really eager power delivery, coming out of a corner and stuff with the electric motor. I mean, it is really fun. So yes, I do still think it is more fun to drive. I mean, if we're talking, like Sonata N line, probably still more fun with a 300 horsepower motor and stuff. But yeah, I think when we're talking regular stuff, Camry all-wheel drive is still my favorite for the hybrid one. These new hybrids are really, really fun. Accord is a great driver though, and I think my thing, Camry is very nice as a regular daily driver as well, but I'd say Camry is the most fun if I was doing a long commute or a lot of miles though. I'd be tempted to go for Accord, because Accord to me still has a little bit of a softer suspension. The seats are softer. There's more soft touch materials and padding everywhere in the new Accord. You don't have that as much in the Camry. I mean, the new Camry interior is certainly improved as well. But for me, if I was going to be spending a lot of time in a car, I'd probably still go for Accord. Sonata's also, up there pretty good as well. I think Honda just does the driving dynamics a little bit better. So I think I probably still land on Accord. I also like the way they do the hybrid system as far as the regular stuff, like they just punch off the line. And it usually, like, I just like it's a little more electrified with the driving experience and a little less of the CVT thing you get with the Camry sometimes still. So personally, most of the time I like the Accord better, but on a back road, I certainly like the Camry the best. So hopefully that gives you a little more insight or depth there into opinion. But so yeah, if you're a Honda guy and you enjoy Accord, then I think it makes sense to stick with Accord if you're looking for another one in the future, because Accord is still great. And I mean, even on a back road, it's still good. It's just Honda definitely decided like we want to go comfortable, we want to go for mainstream appeal here. It still drives very well, but I think it does feel a little bit less sporty than the last generation Accord, and that's okay because I think again mass appeal is very important, and very much just again there's no reason to have everything be super sporty. I think that's something that a lot of companies kind of miss the plot on sometimes, is like a lot of the people that run these companies are enthusiasts and they want to have all the sporty stuff, but I think sometimes they almost get too much of an echo chamber where it's like, okay, we like sporty stuff, but like 99% of people don't, and we need to make cars for them because they're the ones writing the checks and keeping this company afloat. So I think, and this is why for better or worse, I think Subaru, this is why their sales are fantastic, because everything is very soft, and everything is, really not designed for enthusiasts anymore. But that's okay because clearly, again, most people aren't enthusiasts and they love, these blander Subarus for it. And so I think there's something to be said for that. And so I think Accord did a nice kind of happy medium of softening up a little bit, but still being really good. Thank you again for the super chat. And sorry again for the wait on that as well. And Chad, thanks so much for being a member for a whole year now. I really appreciate that. He says, any updates on DeLorean? Chevy Bolt still happening. Thoughts on site to consumers and cutting out dealers, and test drive service facilities only. So as far as DeLorean, haven't heard any updates on that. I don't think that's going to go very far. It's someone always tries to do something and then it like fizzles out. I think especially now in this period we're in where I think EV startups are not going to have a very easy time. I don't think DeLorean's going to go anywhere. I had my doubts even originally, and I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I haven't heard anything new. I might have missed something, but yeah, I don't think there's really anything new that I've seen. As far as Chevy Bolt still happening, I think so. It's been radio silence from GM on that, though. I mean, and I think I talked about this a week or two ago too in the live. Like they shut down Cadillac XT4 production early just to get everything ramped up for Bolt. Malibu went away to make room for Bolt. Like they're really clearing out that factory for Bolt. And where's Bolt? Like there's no spy shots, there's no teasers, there's no commitment that is happening aside from I think a year ago them like saying we're doing it, and that was about it. I have no clue. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know if they're doing some last minute changes or if they're having a change of heart as far as the plan there or what. Or maybe that factory, they have this factory cleared out and, they were going to do Bolt there, but maybe they're like, oh crap, well, maybe we should start building more Silverados there or something because of the tariffs and stuff. So maybe Bolt gets, swept under the floor for a few years and they, bring in more Silverado production instead or do something else to reallocate factories, we'll have to see. So that's my best guess is they might be bailing on the idea of building that in America since there's no incentive to build, these batteries in America anymore because all the green stuff's being thrown out the window. So it's like, all right, well, if we can build batteries, maybe we build the batteries in Mexico or we build the batteries somewhere else instead because there's no reason to build them in the States. We'll build all the gas guzzlers here that everyone desperately wants anyway, churn that stuff out, make the money, and then, see where we're at once the dust settles in 2029. So maybe that's what they're doing. We'll see. As far as thoughts on site to consumers and cutting out dealers, there's little baby steps that are made towards that, but I think that's still going to be a very slow, hard process to cut out dealers, even though manufacturers won't tell you this, but I'm sure most of them would love to cut out dealers. And it's just that, there's all these franchise laws in America that make it so hard to, get rid of them. They really got manufacturers by the throat. And so, they're going to try these little offshoot brands, but again, that stuff's all, seems like it's going to crash and burn. Like it's a Fila thing that, Honda's trying, that's going to be tough. Scout's trying to do, a direct to consumer, but there's even dealers upset, like Volkswagen dealers are mad that they're not getting Scouts, and all this stuff. So I think it's going to be very, very tough to cut these dealers out, even though I'd love to see it because dealers are, one of the worst buying experiences the public ever has to do. But it's just, they got the money, the lobbying and all the crap to keep all that stuff firmly in place. And as far as test drive and service facilities only for those dealers, I mean, that was, the idea was like that's what they could be in the future. Um, but it doesn't seem like, obviously, the test drive thing they don't want to do because they're not making any money off of that unless they go to hourly employees or whatever. But as far as service facilities, I mean, car companies do make a lot of money on service, but if we're talking about EVs that typically have much less servicing required, and don't break nearly as often, there's not a whole lot of servicing to do there, which is also why so many dealers from the very beginning were always against EVs, because they know in the future it's going to screw them. And so they always, for their own best interests, had the agenda of just bashing EVs for the most part anyway. So you combine all these factors, it's like, well, it's no wonder the dealers are complaining about all the lightnings on their lot and bashing EVs and stuff, because they know that money stream most likely ends for the most part the second they drive off the lot. And that's a dealer's worst nightmare. And that's another reason why they're fighting the electric transition, just like many others that are losing out in other ways. It's because there's a lot of people that are going to have their profits hurt and their businesses hurt as a result. And so they're doing it for self-preservation. But let me see here. Rafi, thank you so much for being a member for 32 months now. I really appreciate it. He said, hey, Matt, our lease is ending for our CRV. I'm not sure if we want a hybrid CRV or gas. Math-wise, we only save about $500 a year. Is it worth it? Also, no spare on a hybrid, which is a turnoff for us. What do you think? Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to, your preferences there. I mean, if you ran the math and, you're only saving $500 a year, I guess it depends on how long you keep the CRV for. If you keep it long enough, I don't know. I don't remember what the price premium is, since it's kind of just broken out by trims and, you just kind of get more stuff. But, so yeah, it's hard to say as far as price premium, but if you think, you can get a slightly nicer trim and get the hybrid with the extra power, and in the end, if you keep it long enough, you will come out ahead. If you're okay, kind of paying that up front there with a hybrid, I think the hybrid is certainly the better driving experience because it's obviously faster. You don't have a CVT to deal with, even though Honda's new CVT is mostly fine. But and I will say I did a brief drive in a gas CRV, but I haven't had one for a week. They only feel like they want to ever send out the hybrids for the press fleets. I don't have a lot of experience on the gas one, honestly, to give you a great back-to-back opinion on it. But I mean, the hybrid's it's really great, with the power, and just, again, a really well done hybrid. And so, I mean, that's a nice perk, and the fuel economy is also a fun kind of thing to hypermile if you're into that. The regen panels are kind of fun. So there's some things there. It just comes down to, how you feel about hybrids and the extra power and all that. But I mean, the spare being, a turn off, I mean, I can certainly understand that, especially if you do a lot of, driving, a lot of road trips and stuff where having a spare really comes in clutch. That could certainly be understandable. I mean, you could always, if you do a lot of highway driving, buy a CRV spare and toss that into the trunk, whenever you are on a trip, something like that, if you have the spare space. So there's workarounds, obviously, but if you want a spare, and, you're not finding any other compelling reasons to go for the hybrid, by all means, go for the gas. And it's interesting. I'm not sure how much longer Honda's going to do the gas one either, because of, if they follow Toyota's lead and just go all hybrid like RAV4, we might see that for CRV in the future. So if you are worried about, getting a gas CRV, I mean, I don't think there's anything going to change anytime soon. They've already announced 2026 stuff, and that's all going to be mostly the same. So you're safe for a while, but I could see eventually Honda following Toyota there. So, if you want your last gas one before the hybrid stuff, that could be, another angle there. But I personally would go hybrid myself. I like it, the better fuel economy. I like the extra power, and I like the extra bells and whistles. So if you have the disposable money for it, I'd recommend the top trims of the CRV are the nicest, So hopefully it helps you a little bit. Let me know if you have any follow-up questions. More than happy to help. And let me see here. Other questions. Confirmation says the Peugeot 508 station wagon is gorgeous. I feel like Peugeot does a bunch of really good looking stuff. I mean, maybe there's been some weird ones recently, but I can't recall. I feel like everything they do is pretty good looking. Marco says, found some time. It's called Lapis Blue, apparently, but it's the dark blue as far as the STI. I got it with a warranty since it did come modified by the best Subaru tech in my area, but better to be safe than sorry. Nice. Well, yeah, I hope it treats you well. And yeah, sounds like you got a rare color there with that. So that's very cool. Harsh is asking if anyone ordered the Switch 2. My brother-in-law did, and he's been like cooped up in his house basically since Thursday playing it, and he seems to really love it. Apparently the new Mario Kart game is really cool. He's really been enjoying that too. And I personally haven't, but curious if anyone else has any thoughts on that. But my brother-in-law thinks it's great, so take that for what it's worth. And Chad says, I saw a post making fun of the idea of a Chevy Cavalier cop car from the 2000s, but back in the day, I remember that New Orleans actually had them. Crazy. Yeah, I didn't know they actually did that. It's kind of funny. I also didn't know. I saw a picture from the LA riots I was seeing today that there was one where there was Toyota BZ4X cop cars in LA, and I didn't know the LAPD had BZ4X cop cars. I thought they just had Model Ys, and then just the other gas stuff. But apparently they have BZ4Xs now, which I'm sure Toyota did not love seeing. Pictures of BZ4Xs. They're in the midst of the LA chaos. But yeah, that was another cop car. I didn't know it was a cop car. And Harsha says, do you think that the current gen Camry and RAV4 and next gen Corolla will be the last gas powered generations of these cars with a 6-year lifespan, which is 2031? So I don't think it'll be the last gas powered ones. I know, yeah, if you're talking 6-year lifespan, but I mean, if you look at, Camry came out, I think 2018, right? So, I think even that was it 2018 model year or 2019, but regardless, I'm pretty sure it came out in 2018. And, so that puts it at 7 years. So maybe, one extra one, but I mean, either way, no, I think, it's very clear that we're going to have gas cars in the 2030s still, and especially from Toyota. They've said, that they are obviously doing all the electric stuff as well, but they, think that it's very important to have the gas option still too. So I think that we'll see all that stuff certainly just be hybrid only probably by that point. But I think we'll still have gas for the following generations of those. Yeah, just because we'll have such a setback as far as progress on, just consumer demand for EVs here for the next few years as a result of this administration, that like there's no way we get back on track to a 2035 deadline or any kind of thing like that. It's just going to be, we'll be starting, from a still a further position than we are here, because it is going to continue to grow, but not enough, I think, to justify those big sellers being all electric by 2031. I don't think that's going to happen, especially from Toyota. So I think you're good to expect a gas one in the 2030s. So yeah, I wouldn't worry too much. And Michael P says, longtime fan. Hope you and the family are doing well. Thanks so much for being a fan for a long time here. He says, personal opinion, I think GM should continue or consider dropping the 5.3 and 6.2 in the Hummer, or even the 3.0 Duramax. Interested in your thoughts. It's kind of tricky with those vehicles in particular, with Hummer and anything on that GM Ultium platform, because Ultium is really like a complete just skateboard. It's not like the Stellantis electric stuff where it's kind of this modular thing where you can, have gas and electric. Like the GM thing, they were building it as like, a Tesla fighter of like, this is only electric. It's always going to only be electric, and that's it. Now, could they take the Hummer body and possibly, divorce it from that skateboard and try to cobble up some kind, or stretch it some way to make it fit underneath a, body on frame truck platform? I don't know enough about the dimensions and if it even comes close to like Tahoe size, as far as, because it's just such a wildly different thing, with the huge wheels and everything else. So I don't know if that's possible, like it would be for some others that maybe you're, again, doing these modular things. So I really doubt that that's possible. And I mean, maybe you could see them do the same thing we see with, like Ram doing, again, Ram Charger. But even that, again, that was developed as a modular thing. So I don't see it being possible. Now, if it was possible, sure. If they want to go and do a cash grab for another 4 years as well, that would be it. I think the thing though that would drive GM crazy is like Hummer EV was designed to convert the naysayers and be like, look, this thing can still be a guzzler of electricity because it's horribly inefficient. So it's still insanely inefficient, even though it's electric, but like, it's also supposed to be this wild, irreverent, crazy kind of thing. And so I think that if you go gas, you undermine the entire mission of that car and the entire ethos of what the Hummer EV is supposed to be, according to GM. And so, even if it was technically possible, I think that they would be just against it, from a management standpoint, just because of, again, that whole purpose of the car. Because every time I've had or I've seen executives, when you pose these kinds of questions to them, they're like, well, that's not what it's for. And it doesn't even matter if like it's technically capable or if the market's suggesting you should do that or whatever. It's just like, well, this wasn't the mission of this car, or this wasn't what we designed it or conceived it for. And it's like they stick themselves in that box, and like you can't break out of that box in their mind. It's just like, why do you even ask that? Because it's like there's this is the way it was supposed to be. And like I think there'd be some of that pushback if it was even possible, but I don't even think it's possible. So it's probably something that's not even discussed within GM because there's just no way. Now, do they do another Hummer that's, or try and cobble something together quickly to again do a cash grab for the next few years where you have something that's a Hummer H3 kind of thing that's gas powered or something else that's a little bit different, but just for people who do want a Hummer, want a gas Hummer or something. But I don't know. I think GM has also over the years shown that they don't care about competing or following trends or following what other companies are doing. Because if they did, we'd have a supercharged Silverado 5 years ago. Then that it's just sitting there. I mean, talking about technical capabilities. I mean, they did it in Escalade V, so that shows you. I mean, you could literally take the same thing they did with Escalade V, but just do it for Tahoe, do it for Silverado, do it for Sierra, do it for literally everything, and then print money. But GM doesn't even have the good sense to do that. So if GM can't even figure out to put a supercharged motor that's sitting on the shelf in the Silverado, then there's no hope of any kind of gas-powered Hummer. And again, I think they would also just say like, that's just against what they would ever want to do anyway. But yeah, so for all those reasons, I do not think that would ever happen, and I think they wouldn't want it to, even if it was possible. So it's an interesting question though, and I mean, certainly, that's the first thing out of everyone's mouth. The second Hummer EV came out, 5 years ago now at this point, was like, I'd buy it if it had a V8, or any kind of gas engine. And it's just, again, people just wanting to have the old thing instead of the new thing. And it's this current struggle in the car market that every company is struggling with. And let me see. Cam, thanks for stopping by. Ernesto, thanks for stopping by as well. And Cam says, this weekend I was up in Hershey, PA for another Avril Lavigne concert. Got to see some family and did a tour of Hershey World while I was up there. Beautiful area. Nice. That's awesome. Hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, I done a bunch of reviews up in Hershey there. So I that's actually, if you watched my V8 Miata video, speaking of shoving V8s into things, if you watch my V8 Miata video from last year, that was actually filmed in Hershey. That was, and I filmed a bunch of my reviews. I filmed my Dodge Demon review in Hershey. Street Speed Mike's Corvette ZR1 review was there in Hershey. A bunch of the others that I did. So I'm not sure how much you drove around, but if you went to the Hotel Hershey, that's the parking lot where I did the Ferrari 458 Spider review there. And there's like a back road right off of the Hotel Hershey there. And that's the really awesome windy, hilly road that I filmed. Probably at this point, it's probably been over 25 or 30 reviews at least on those roads. So yeah, Hershey's great. I'm glad you had a good time and enjoyed the Avril Lavigne concert there. And yeah, I saw that she put out a song with Simple Plan, which I was like, man, this is like hitting me in all the right feels as far as sentimental stuff. Like I don't know, I really like all of a sudden the past few months, like, man, I heard Simple Plan for the first time forever. I'm like, I miss this album. All the Simple Plan album, the one where they're like at the bachelor party or whatever. It's the crazy album cover is so funny. But that album, like, man, that's like some core memories there. So I'm not sure if she did anything with them there or not, but yeah, I saw that new song she did with them, and it was like a very fun kind of nostalgic song. So yeah, hoping you had a good time there. And you see, Brian, thanks for stopping by here. He says, keep up the good work. I've been watching the channel since you first started. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's been a long time. So thank you so much for watching all these years, and hope you're still enjoying the videos here. And Ernesto said, I like your reviews because you get to the point. I don't really care for all the showmanship of the other car reviewers. Well, I'm glad you appreciate it, Ernesto. And yeah, that's the great thing though about car reviews. There's something for everyone. If you want to go have the crazy, adventure or whatever in a car review, there's lots of great people that do really good stuff with that. If you want to have the over-the-top production value, Hagerty's got you covered now, with all the insane stunts that Jason Camisa does and everything else, the amazing drag races, all that kind of stuff. Obviously I can't compete with that kind of stuff. He does a really good job. Yeah, there's something for everyone out there, and that's what's great about it. And I'm just here to, do my little contribution that I can. Harsher says, if the Yugo does come out soon, would you consider leasing one for laughs when your Fiat lease is over? I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it, honestly. If they had the big thing would be they would have to have a decent dealer network. Like even Fiat, I have a Fiat dealer 20 minutes away from me. I know that's something probably most people can't say, but I can. And so, I think that would be my biggest worry is like, yeah, for laughs. And I mean, it would make for a great video series if it did turn out to be a complete hunk of junk. Like, I mean, that would be YouTube gold. So that would be, yeah, I'd be totally open to that. It's just like I would want to make sure that I could get the thing fixed if I needed to get it fixed. So that would be my only hold up with the Yugo. But otherwise, I mean, it looks great, and it could be a really fun little thing for sure. So we'll see. Obviously, long ways off here. I got another, basically, a little over 3 years left in the Fiat. So, but we'll see what 2028 brings, and see what happens then. But see, Ernesto also says, yeah, Elon killed the brand for a lot of people. Yeah, definitely, unfortunately. And let me see here. Cam also says, would you ever review a second gen Acura RDX with a V6? Yes, I'm hoping to review one this year. There's been one or two that have popped up on the used dealer sites that I work with, and I want to review them soon. But they usually sell fairly quickly, and I'm always busy and I don't have the chance to get to it before it goes away. But I do, because those are the types of things, like used Acuras and used Infinities are like gold mines for me. They always get good views. They always continue to get good views for like ever. And they're always just like, they don't get a ton of views, but like they're always doing like 100 views a day or so. And like that, if those types of videos, if I could just have every video get like 100 views a day, I'd be in a much better place. Like those are the kinds of key ones that really do well for me. Is over the long haul, they really do add up to a good chunk of money versus, getting, woo, I got 10,000 views on this video and then no one watched it for the rest of the time. Like that's, very much not lucrative. It's about kind of building that evergreen stuff is really where the money's at. So any used Acura, I'm always down to review. So any used Acura I can get my hands on, any used Infinity, they're always videos. People are always watching those, it seems. And so I definitely want to do that soon. And Zach says, everyone who can charge an electric car at their house, what is the apprehension? It's a better driving experience. I mean, you're preaching to the choir with me. I'm sure others can maybe weigh in there. I see also Zach said GM has had experience in the EV field because they've been making the diesel electrics for the past 40 years. Yeah, they've also been playing around with, the actual EVs. They had the EV1 back in the 90s, and they were just, again, very much ahead of their time with that stuff, and just typical GM having bad timing in many ways, but having the right idea. But yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that I do always see a lot of people say that are converts to electrics is like, they're like, I test drove it, and then I was like, I never want to go back. And even Beth, I mean, that's why she's like, whatever we get next, it has to be electric, because like she just loves the way that it responds. She loves the performance. That's it. It's literally just because she likes that when she steps on the gas, she gets immediate power. That's it. There's literally nothing else about an EV that she cares about. It's just that she puts her foot down and it does exactly what she wants it to do every single time. No waiting for the transmission, no waiting for an engine to rev up, waiting for boost to kick in, waiting for the other car to figure out what it wants to do. Like, it's just like, no, like instant power every single time. And like, so I think for a lot of people, yeah, you test drive it and, you see how easy it is to live with. Like, that can really help some people. But for a lot of people, again, especially, if we're talking regular car buyers, I'd say for sure that's a good tactic. But I think for, enthusiasts, like they said, that people are going to pay more for a slower V8 just because it has the sound. And that's going to be, I think, the thing we're going to see for the next 5 years here is, people, I mean, I said this for years with the Charger EV. There's going to be, the Charger EV is going to separate the real drag racing people that actually want to win races from the people that are actually not caring that much about winning. Because the people who truly want to win races will go for the EV every time, because it's going to be a perfect launch every time. It's going to be perfect all-wheel traction every time. It's going to be faster and better in every single way on the drag strip. And the people who thought they were drag race heroes are then going to be losing to all the Chargers, especially once the Banshee version comes out here, and is, whatever, 1,000 horsepower, whatever that's going to be. But like, in the meantime, it's just, you're gonna have all these people who thought, oh, I love going fast, and it's like only to a limit. And then they reach their limit of like, well, now it's an experience thing, and I don't care if I'm slow because I'm about the experience, which is fine. I love the experience as well. No hate, but it's just funny. Like, people will like go from being these like, oh, I always want to win at the drag strip. Those people are really going to be separate. Like, how much do you actually care about winning? And some people will actually care enough to say, this is the best thing. This is the better drag racer. I'm going to go for this. And then you're going to have the people that all of a sudden are like, oh no, it's all about the experience. And they're going to start talking like Miata drivers. Like, oh, I don't care if I'm not going fast. I just like the experience. It's like, okay. I mean, it's not like a Hellcat slow or anything, but like, it's just going to be this funny kind of, not hypocrisy, but just like going backwards on like, from talking a big game to being like, oh, now I'm cool. Like, yeah, I'm just going to go slow and I'm fine with it. But yeah, it's kind of going to be very interesting to see. I haven't been to a drag strip, but it'd be very funny to see the feathers get ruffled at the drag strip, I'm sure, whenever these Charger EVs start showing up and winning races. Anyway, sorry, I missed the other two super chats here from Jordan. So thank you, Jordan, for the first one here. He says, EV incentive going away, no more EV cop cars. I think that comes down to the jurisdiction, and where you're at. I think for cities, it still makes more sense. And I think especially, a lot of the EV cop car stuff is state incentives and state initiatives. They're not federal things. The federal government doesn't care what kind of what cop car, the different municipalities use. So I think, like the LAPD has cop cars because it's LA, and they have electric cop cars because California, is excited about that. And so I think you're still going to see it. It's just going to be a state thing for sure. Also, Jordan, thank you for another super chat. He says, I think in 2010, GM paid Far East Movement and Dev to produce the song like a G6 to try and keep Pontiac alive. I wish, yeah, they should have dropped some kind of mention of the car in there instead of just talking about the G6 jet. But yeah, that was certainly one way to boost brand recognition for G6. A little bit too late. And also, Jordan, thank you for another super chat. He says, I love song displays of what you listen to on your reviews. I'm glad you enjoy that. Yeah, the various things I show on the infotainment screen there. It's funny. I'm glad you enjoy it, Jordan. And let me see here. So we got about another 9 minutes or so. We're not too far behind though on member chats tonight, so that's good. We're keeping up pretty well. Looks like we got a few less viewers than usual too, so it must be a busy night for some people. But let me see here. So Harsha says, one thing I don't like about the Tesla interiors is that there are no grab handles, and the fact that the center area looks like a transmission tunnel. They could have been more creative with the interior design. Yeah, I mean, and that's one of the things, like, again, you'll see in my Ioniq 5 review. I love that the Ioniq 5, has the flat floor. You have the, totally flat floor even in the front. It was great. I was filming it on a hot day. I didn't even have to get out of the car because I had to go to the passenger seat to mount my camera, and I could actually slide through the front because you can slide that center console back. So I'm actually able to hop from the passenger seat into the driver's seat while staying in the car there. And I'm like, man, I haven't been able to do this since bench seats or, old stuff, where you can do that at classic cars and stuff. And that was just kind of a fun little thing. So having the floor in the front is very cool. And let me see. So Mystical Gamer says, hey, Matt, sorry I went away from the live for as long as I did, but I do hope you're having a good evening so far. Same for Beth and the little one. All good. I know everyone's got their own stuff they're doing. And, especially now it's warmer weather. I'm sure people are out having fun and enjoying other things. And so, I think these usually do better in the wintertime when people are more cooped up. I don't have as much, competing with these, but totally get it. And thanks for stopping by. And we're all doing well. Thank you. I hope you're doing well too. And let me see. Jordan also says, when you apply aftermarket products to vehicles, does that void warranties? Just curious because I've never done it before. So the way the law is written, the way that I understand it at least, is that aftermarket parts only void the warranty for the part you are modifying. So, for example, if you are doing something to the engine, then yes, that could void your engine warranty. But an exhaust, for example, is beyond the engine and therefore shouldn't mess anything up with the engine. So if your engine fails and you have an aftermarket exhaust, it should be fine and they shouldn't blame the exhaust. Sometimes they try to blame the exhaust. This is why you need to know your rights and your laws about this stuff if you ever do plan to modify and dealers try and give you a hard time. But typically, if you do new wheels and tires, that doesn't affect the engine. So if your engine blows and you have aftermarket wheels, they can't blame that. So, but if you have crazy fitment on your wheels, for example, and your ball joint goes, or, your CV boot goes or something, that's probably because you stanced your car and screwed it up. And so yes, if you bring it in and say, hey, my CV boot's broken, I was like, yeah, well, you voided your warranty by screwing with your, camber or whatever. And so, so that's kind of the way that works in my understanding of it. But otherwise, no, it's not like, you put an exhaust on your car and all of a sudden your entire warranty goes away. And if anyone tries that on you, again, show them the law. I mean, the law is on your side there. They do not void stuff unless, you're doing something to the part that failed. So let me see here. Rafi says, also, I was thinking RAV4 Hybrid has a spare, but dealers are not willing to make a deal at all. My mom loves her heated seats and moonroof, and Toyota was the only one willing to make a deal on a base LE. Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I think with RAV4, it's going to be tough with, the deals and stuff. Toyota dealers are always so tough with that, it seems. And the base LE, I mean, I'm surprised they're even making a deal on that because I feel like even those are rare and people still snatch those up pretty fast too. But yeah, I mean, RAV4 Hybrid's great too. I mean, it comes down to, what you prefer. I mean, there's a bunch of good stuff. I think Hyundai, the Tucson Hybrid's still really great. The powertrain's not perfect, but it's really great. And regular Tucson's great too. If you want to have all the bells and whistles, the Hyundai still gives you that option. You can get a limited Tucson with just regular gas still. Same with Sportage, at Ford Escape. I mean, there's a bunch that still offer that. So I'm not sure, if you're wanting to stick to Japanese, Rogue, obviously has no hybrid. That's another one you could do too. But, I think obviously the RAV4 and the CR-V are the two top sellers because they're the best things in that segment. But I think there's a lot of really good other, options too. And I also like CX-5. I mean, CX-5 is still one of my favorites. Obviously no hybrid there. You get all the creature comforts. There are lots of deals usually on Mazdas, especially CX-5s. And so I think, again, it depends on how much space you need, but CX-5 is always going to be my favorite in that compact SUV segment. So, it doesn't have the most space, but if you're okay with a little less space, I think CX-5 is still my favorite. And Michelle says, "What's up, Matt? I just got back from a night out with a couple of friends and now joining in. Well, thanks for stopping by, and hope you had a great weekend here. And we'll be wrapping up here in a few minutes." So Harsha says, "Do you think the Charger EV was doomed from the start because of their customer sentiment and the fact that it's far more money than Model 3 Performance or Ioniq 5N for less money?" I don't know about the competition because I think those are very different buyers. Obviously, again, they have to be buyers that are open to EVs, but I think, I mean, just by the way Charger looks like, I mean, that is a very much, an extroverted kind of person that, wants to have something bold that makes a statement versus Model 3 Performance. No one looks at you in that, no. And so, I mean, that's a very different kind of buyer, I think. Ioniq 5N, I guess there might be a little more overlap personally. But I appreciate all the reactions, everyone, as well. But yeah, I think that's just a different kind of buyer. So I think, I think Charger EV, they had a good idea with being like, okay, all you guys say you're tired of losing at the drag strip. Well, now you never will in the electric one. And then they're like, oh, well, no, we don't actually care about that much. So I think, but yes, Dodge, I mean, their marketing for years has been, the crazy, wild, Americana, redneck kind of stuff. That's the last group that's going to convert to EVs. So, I mean, there is certainly, it was definitely a giant uphill battle, but I think, I still agree with their original marketing. Performance made them do it. That's what they said. And it made complete sense. It holds water. It's a valid argument. Performance made them do it. Electric performance is better. Like, that's non-negotiable, just the way it is. And so, to raise the bar in performance, like, sure, you could have another 5 more horsepower, you could put a bigger supercharger on a V8, you can make the V8 bigger, you could have it freer flowing, you can do all these little incremental things, or you can take a giant leap forward with the EV. And they thought that maybe people would be ready for that. Clearly people weren't. And again, the other thing you have to keep in mind, the last thing I'll say about Charger EV is that Charger EV was conceived when EVs were red hot. We're talking when Charger EV was being developed and they were, pitching these ideas, we were in a market where people were paying 10 grand over for a Mach-E, 10 grand over or more. All the EVs were $10,000 over sticker, and people were paying them, lining up, red hot demand. That's when Charger EV was conceived. So, now it looks like an idiotic decision because, no one had a crystal ball, but like back then, that was the right call in that moment. And this is, this can apply to a variety of things in life. You have to make the right decision in the moment for yourself. You don't know what the future is going to hold. That decision might end up being a horrible decision down the road. You might get lucky. It might be great, but you don't know the future. You have to make the best choices with the information you have at the moment. Cars take too long to develop to cash in on a trend or a fad or an administration even. And that's why, they said, wow, well, here we are in the year 2021 and everyone is obsessed with EVs. They're paying 10 grand over a sticker. We can charge $80,000 for this Charger EV. People are probably going to pay 90 for it whenever it finally hits the dealers. And they're going to love this. They're going to be lining up out the door for it because that was the culture in 2021. And sure, they knew that they had some people that would be mad about it. They always knew that, but you had a lot more optimism for an EV sports car in 2021 than you do now. And again, that's just the thing people don't realize. People think that like these cars were like cooked up in a microwave in 30 seconds and rolled out onto the stage. Like, it takes years. And so we've just had so many radical culture shifts and administration shifts and this back and forth whiplash of Trump and then the Biden stuff and then Trump again. And just like there's no consistency. So there's nothing to bank on. And, again, we had a truly huge demand for EVs just a few years ago. And if you would have told people in 2021 that by 2025, these things would be 10 grand under sticker, they'd be like, yeah, right. And this is why my buyout price on the Mach-E is phenomenal. And all these other things, it's like, you got all these things where you're walking into a lot of equity with a lot of these leases and stuff because they couldn't envision all these things. And it's just for others, they're walking away from some of the leases. And this is why leasing makes more sense for others. But this is kind of how I'm playing things also with the Fiat, where now, seeing how the next 3.5 years is going to go, it's this Fiat is probably going to be worth more money because it's going to be scarcer. It's going to be less, there's gonna be less of these things out there, and for the people who do want an EV, they're gonna have maybe a little less choice, or it's gonna be more expensive. And so, it just comes down to individual cars and how things play out. But I think, there's just a lot of that just it's too hard to predict. And this is why car companies are getting burned, left and right, because they can't deal with the whiplash. There's no way to move a giant ship that quick. You can't turn it on a dime. And that's just their biggest problem. And Roman says, how do you like the 2025 Chevy Trax Active? Should I recommend it to a friend? Trax is great. I mean, obviously, it's a great value. It's so much space. It's so much car for the money. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's, $22,500. It's a start, So, I mean, as long as you have appropriate expectations, it's great. I absolutely love the Trax. I wish more companies would do something like that. And, I mean, they sold 200,000 of them last year. So I think the numbers speak for themselves. It's it really fills a need that's being underserved in this country, and it's also just does it very well. It used to be the subcompact crossovers were these cramped little things that have a bunch of compromises on. They were as slow as a Flintstone car and everything, and now they're like so much better. And so I think Trax is a really good car, so I'd recommend it. I mean, would I keep a Trax for 15 years? Probably not. If that's the case, I'd recommend, Toyota or something like that. But, especially if you're going to keep it just, for 5, maybe 10 years, I think, it should treat you pretty well and, hopefully be a pretty good experience. Because again, 200,000 people bought them last year. So to me, that's one of those things where numbers, usually suggest, that if there's a giant following and a giant amount of sales, it's probably because they're doing something right. So I think it's a solid buy. And let me see. Sorry, I missed a couple other super chats here. So Rafi, thank you so much for a super chat. I really appreciate that. And General Chicken, thank you for a super chat. He says, hey, Matt, thanks for the advice on picking up a GR86/BRZ a few videos ago. Went with a new 25 BRZ base manual sticker and no tariff charge. That's awesome. Base GR86 was too hard to find, sadly, but happy with the BRZ. Thanks. That's awesome. I'm so happy that the video helped you here, and I hope you continue to have a blast with it. And the base is that's the way to go, I think. So we probably talked about that, in the last one. But the base, the tail happy nature of those all season tires is great. And if you find yourself wanting more traction, it's just one tire swap away. But that's awesome. I'm glad you're having a blast with it, and glad you're able to get a good deal on it too. That's awesome, and I hope you enjoy it to the maximum. That's awesome. I'm happy to hear that. Thanks for letting me know, and thank you for the super chat as well. All right, so let me see the last few questions here, and we'll head out. So I see Altruistics also asking about rolling my C140 and E70 diesel into something newer, but can't fall in love with anything yet. F90 and C217 S63 65 coupes have been on the list, with maybe an early 991 manual. Any ideas? I mean, that's kind of all over the place, So, I mean, it's hard to say. It would come down to exactly what you are looking for, what you like, what you don't like. Between those two, if it were me, I'd probably rather have the 991 manual. Porsches are always great. Obviously not as comfortable as a big old S63 or 65 coupe, but those things can be a little bit more of a reliability nightmare. I mean, Porsche can be that as well, but I think Porsche reliability is typically better than Mercedes. And also, I mean, personally, I like just the better handling of an actual sports car over, the S63 is a nice, powerful Grand Tourer. But if you're going to put a lot of miles, a lot of long road trips or something like that, that'd be the better case for the Mercedes. But if it were my money and everything else was equal, I'd go for the 991 manual. So I hope that helps you a little bit. And Chad says, you and Beth are a great duo. That's something you have over the friends on other channels. I appreciate that. The problem with Beth doing like actual full reviews with me is that she just doesn't have very many opinions about a lot of the stuff. And this is something a lot of people have said this in the past, and that's always the answer I give. It's just like, even in the interior reviews, if you watch those, like she has some opinions, but I'm always like, trying to see if there's any more that she could say. And usually it's just like, she's like, nope, like it's good. Otherwise, like she doesn't have a ton of very passionate opinions about this kind of stuff. And even when we're driving in cars, I'll be like, wow, like this seems like it's got a little bit of a stiffer ride than the one we had last week. And she's like, oh, I don't know. I don't pay attention. I didn't know. Like she didn't even register like can't say a single opinionated thing about it. So that's the thing that, if she was like super into cars, I mean, she knows a lot about cars. She's very good at car spotting and stuff. But, can she tell you the difference between a solid beam rear axle and a, multi-link rear? Can she tell you the difference between McPherson struts and, F1 style suspension? I mean, there's all these different things, push rod suspension, like is what I was thinking of. Those types of things, like no idea. So that's the kind of stuff where, I mean, I could teach her for sure and, kind of get her into that stuff, but that's just something she's not super interested in. She likes luxury vehicles and she can weigh in on interiors because she interacts with that, and that's, more relevant to her. But, as far as the other stuff, it's just a little bit of a tough thing to do as far as a review. So most of it, I mean, if we did do a buddy review, just me and her together, I mean, it'd be nice to see her in the passenger seat, so, increase the appeal of the videos. Having, someone that's not me to look at would be good. But other than that, it probably wouldn't be quite as dynamic as the other duos you see out there. But Michelle says, usually we discuss these early in the stream, but my interesting spots were a Pontiac G5 GT and a mint condition early 2000s Pontiac Grand Prix. Nice. And Cam says, yes, Matt, she brought Simple Plan up on stage for the song. That's awesome. Wow, that must have been quite the party. That's man, that would have been very cool to see. So you went to a good show. That's awesome. And glad that happened. That's cool that they're touring together. Joe says membership check. It doesn't look like you're a member here, Joe, but definitely, yeah, feel free to join again if you want for the next live stream here. But I see Kai says, really enjoy your stream. I'm from Singapore. Well, thanks for watching all the way from Singapore. That's awesome. I'm glad you enjoy it. And thanks for stopping by. And Cam says, well, we have a 2016 with the advanced package of 63,000 miles. Nice. Well, yeah, I'd love to do a new RDX, or a second gen RDX there. I even want to do a first gen RDX at some point. But Harsh says, what's the worst engine and transmission pairing have you ever experienced in a review in terms of reliability and everyday driving? Excuse me. I think I didn't do a review on it, but the smart car was definitely one of the worst powertrains. Horribly slow shifting automated manual in the smart car. This is like, late 2000s smart car, I'd say, or maybe mid 2000s even. That was the worst, but I didn't review it. I'd love to review one of those someday just for the hilarity factor. But haven't had any luck finding any of those recently. But that's probably the worst. As far as things I've reviewed, I'd have to look through all my reviews to jog my memory, because there's nothing that jumps out at me as being like really bad. I'm sure there's something though. I mean, there's been some tricky ones for sure. I think one of the most challenging cars to drive was the 60, I think it was a 1969. It was the Dodge, it was the Dodge 6-pack 440. It wasn't the Roadrunner. That one was easy because it was an automatic, but this is a manual. Why can't I remember the actual model name of it? But anyway, it was a 6-pack 440, and that 4-speed was so hard to drive smoothly. And if you ever want to see me like struggle in a review, that one was peak struggle for me. I think it was a 69. And that was that one was a hard one to drive. So that was probably the worst one from a review standpoint. And Confirmation says, have you ever driven any of the old Chrysler Cloud cars? I haven't actually. I'd love to someday, but have not. And Harsh says, why isn't Tesla in any racing games? I know they don't do any marketing, but if they put their cars in racing games, people would like them more, and especially if they want to be seen as a maker of fast cars. I don't know why they haven't put them in. I don't know if that's something. I mean, Tesla's just, it doesn't help. They don't have a PR department. Like Elon is the PR department. Like they don't do press cars. They don't do media events really, aside from, again, just like the influencer stuff, but they don't do like media drives. They don't do any of that stuff. So like, I'm assuming the people that are responsible for like setting up media stuff also probably, maybe it's a slightly different department, but doing any kind of like external outreach probably falls into that like marketing basket. Then I guess maybe they just feel like isn't worth doing, or at least wasn't in the past. Maybe now, if they're, you know, in the recovery mode here, maybe they'll be open to it in the future. We'll have to see. Theodore says, "Hey man, I've seen a Z06. It sounds amazing. The funny thing is, a grandma was driving. Nice, man, cool grandma driving a Z06. That's awesome." And also, Cam's recommending a CX50 hybrid as well for Rafi if he's looking for, yeah, if you're open to another hybrid, if hybrid is interesting to you, absolutely. Or regular CX50 is great too. I just think CX5 is still priced a little bit better, but CX50 for sure if you want a hybrid. And Chaz says, thanks for another great chat. I agree. Thanks everyone for a great chat here. And Jordan says, you created a short of my question. Will AI eventually start to create the perfect car for humans? Please leave that available for the history books. I definitely, I'll leave all that stuff up. I never really delete videos. So yeah. And yeah, I'm debating whether I do more shorts from these live streams in the future. Some of them have done decent, but others haven't. So I'm still kind of up in the air about whether I do the short thing or I don't. But anyway, I see Altruistics talking about the warranty thing, and look up the Moss Magnuson. Yeah, that's the name of the law there. Basically, yeah, they can only deny coverage if the mod could reasonably contribute to the failure. A tune won't F you if there's a failed timing chain as an example. Right. Yeah. And thanks for the actual name there for those who do want to look that up. So yeah, see, Fook also says, thanks, Matt. Have a great week, everyone. I agree. Hope everyone has a great week here. And yeah, I'm going to be doing a midweek live stream here this week. So stay tuned if you want to have another one. That'll be another hour-long one, a little bit short thing we tried out. We're going to do that, I think, on Wednesday. I was meaning to ask this earlier, but maybe I'll do this as a separate poll after the stream's over here. I'll maybe ask this sometime this week. I'm contemplating doing either a Wednesday live stream or a Friday live stream this week, because I won't be able to do a Sunday live stream next week or any weekend live stream next week. So I won't be doing this next week. The following week, I'll be right back here for Sunday nights. But in the meantime, I'm debating, since I'm not doing a Sunday one this coming week, whether I, do Wednesday or we kind of space out a little bit and do it on Friday. Because I think Zachary and a few others suggested the idea of maybe doing like a micro weekly update kind of thing live and then roll it into a regular live stream. That wouldn't be during normal weekly update time. That would be like, still like 9 o'clock. I see a lot of hearts for that. And so maybe that's something. I see also confirmation says, I hope his super chat was covered. I hope I didn't miss any super chats. If I did, let me know. But I don't think I missed any tonight. But if I did, definitely bring it to my attention. I can answer it here before we go. But so anyway, I see confirmation says Friday sounds good to him. Okay, so yeah, I will do a poll though, I think, here probably at a member post tomorrow or something to see what everyone else thinks. But thank you for the early feedback confirmation. And that could be a fun thing to try here. So maybe we'll do that, but stay tuned. Just, make sure you're subscribed here. It should pop up in your sub feed, for whenever the live stream will be. I'll try and plan it a little bit early ahead of time so you guys know when it's coming here, whether that's Wednesday or Friday. But anyway, thank you all so much for the support and all the hearts there and the love. And hope you have a great week here. Stay safe, stay healthy out there, and have a great week, everyone. Take care.